When my manager stood in front of our entire department and handed my hard-earned promotion to the office favorite, I did not scream or throw a tantrum. I simply smiled, stopped maintaining the background code that kept their fragile servers running, and walked out the door. 3 days later, I turned my phone off airplane mode to find 105 missed calls. The system was burning to the ground and they were begging me to extinguish the flames. Before I continue this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever been the backbone of a company only to be completely overlooked. Growing up, I was always taught that hard work and undeniable competence would eventually speak for themselves. My name is Kendra. I am 35 years old, and for the past 5 years I have been the senior data architect at a prominent analytics firm in Atlanta. To say I ran the data infrastructure for this company would be an incredible understatement. I practically breathed life into those servers. When I first joined the firm, their databases were a tangled, volatile mess of obsolete codes and daily crashes that frustrated our clients to no end. I spent countless evenings, weekends, and holidays untangling the spaghetti code, building a robust and elegant architecture from the ground up that allowed the firm to land multi-million-dollar contracts. I was the silent engine humming in the background, making sure the shiny luxury car never broke down on the highway. I sacrificed my personal time, my social life, and my peace of mind to ensure our clients never saw a single error message. Our director of operations, Jamal, was a man who cared deeply about optics and very little about actual substance. He wore custom-tailored suits, played golf with the senior executives, and knew exactly how to use corporate buzzwords to make empty air sound like a brilliant strategic vision. Jamal and I had a functional working relationship, mostly because my relentless dedication made him look incredibly competent to the board of directors. Whenever a critical server issue threatened to delay a major client report, Jamal would panic. I would quietly identify and fix the problem within minutes, and Jamal would stride into the executive meeting to present the flawless report as if he had personally overseen its creation. I did not mind staying in the background at the time because I knew the vice president of systems operations was planning to retire. Jamal had hinted for months that the position was essentially mine. I had the unmatched seniority, the undeniable technical expertise, and the flawless track record to prove I was the only logical choice to take over the department. I had earned it with my blood, sweat, and thousands of lines of code. Then came Ashley. Ashley is a white woman who also happens to be married to my older brother Malik. She joined our firm exactly 8 months ago. My brother had essentially begged me to put in a good word for her with our human resources department, because she had been let go from her last 2 jobs, and they desperately needed the dual income to support their lavish lifestyle. Against my better judgment, and knowing the potential complications of mixing family with business, I helped her get a foot in the door as a mid-level data analyst. I quickly realized exactly why her previous employers had terminated her. Ashley was charming, relentlessly bubbly, and completely technically incompetent. She spent significantly more time organizing office birthday parties, gossiping by the coffee machine, and bringing in overpriced pastries than she did actually analyzing any data. Within her first month on the job, she nearly corrupted our primary client database because she simply did not understand how to properly execute a basic data export. I spent 4 hours on a Friday night reversing her mistake before it triggered a system-wide failure. The morning of the quarterly review meeting, the air in the glass-walled boardroom felt electric with anticipation. I sat near the front of the room, my notebook open, feeling a quiet, profound sense of pride. This was it. This was the exact moment 5 years of grueling dedication and silent sacrifices would finally be recognized and rewarded. The polished mahogany table gleamed under the bright recessed lighting as the entire department settled into their heavy leather chairs. Jamal stood at the head of the table, projecting his usual charismatic confidence as he prepared to address the team. He went through the quarterly metrics with a wide smile, enthusiastically highlighting our record-breaking server uptime and our flawless client delivery rates. Every single metric he praised was a direct result of my architectural overhauls and my late-night monitoring. I felt a surge of validation knowing my work was driving the entire success of the department. Jamal cleared his throat dramatically, adjusting his expensive tie, and announced that it was time to officially name the new vice president of systems operations. My heart did a slow, steady rhythm in my chest. I sat perfectly still, ready to stand up, ready to graciously accept the leadership mantle I had practically been wearing without the title or the pay for years. I am thrilled to announce that our new vice president is someone who has brought incredible energy, vibrant enthusiasm, and fresh perspectives to our team. Over the past 8 months, Jamal declared, his voice echoing in the quiet room. Please congratulate Ashley. The words hit me like a physical blow to the chest. The air instantly rushed out of my lungs, leaving me breathless and dizzy. I sat frozen in my chair, my hands resting flat on my open notebook, my brilliant mind struggling to process the sheer staggering absurdity of the statement. Ashley, a woman who still had to call the corporate IT help desk twice a week because she routinely forgot how to map a basic network drive. A woman who had been here for a fraction of the time I had. A woman who was only sitting in this very room because I had put my own professional reputation on the line to vouch for her. Around the boardroom table, my clueless colleagues broke into enthusiastic applause. Ashley brought her hands to her face in a highly practiced theatrical display of modest surprise. She stood up slowly, smoothing down her designer skirt, and flashed her bright camera-ready smile at the room. Thank you so much, Jamal, she gushed, her voice dripping with artificial humility. And I really have to thank Kendra for being such a good team player and showing me the ropes when I first started. I truly could not have done this without my favorite worker bee. Favorite worker bee. The staggering condescension in her voice was wrapped in such syrupy sweetness that the rest of the room completely missed the blatant insult. But I heard it loud and clear. It was a verbal slap in the face, a public declaration that she viewed me as nothing more than a mindless drone existing solely to prop up her success. I did not flinch. I did not glare or let my composure crack for even a fraction of a second. I maintained a perfectly neutral expression, applauding politely and steadily along with the rest of the room, while a cold, absolute, and terrifying clarity washed over my entire being. But Jamal was not finished. He needed to somehow justify this ridiculous, meritless promotion to the few senior engineers in the room who actually understood how the department functioned and who were currently exchanging highly confused glances. Ashley has truly revolutionized our workflow and brought us into the modern era. Jamal continued, smoothly gesturing to a sleek slide on the presentation screen. Her incredible initiative in streamlining the automated reporting system has saved this department hundreds of man-hours this quarter alone. It is exactly the kind of innovative, forward-thinking leadership we need moving forward. I stared blankly at the presentation slide, a sudden sharp realization piercing directly through the fog of my shock. The automated reporting system. Jamal was talking about a highly complex, customized Python script I had written entirely from scratch on my personal laptop late one Sunday night. I had built that specific code exclusively because Ashley kept making catastrophic, repetitive errors in the manual client reports. Errors that were so damaging, I had to stay awake until 3 in the morning to manually correct them before the clients woke up and saw the corrupted data. I had quietly implemented the automation script on my local drive to silently correct her workflow and prevent her from bringing down the entire server network with her sheer ineptitude. It was not a company software feature. It was my own personal code running quietly and invisibly in the background, making Ashley look like a flawless productivity genius. And she had eagerly taken the full credit for it. She had stolen the fruits of my hidden labor and used my intellectual property to steal my promotion right out from under me. The meeting finally adjourned and chairs scraped loudly against the floor as people eagerly crowded around Ashley to offer their congratulations and shake her hand. I packed up my notebook, my movements incredibly slow and deliberate. I waited patiently until the room cleared out, watching Jamal gather his presentation notes with a satisfied smirk on his face. Once we were completely alone in the quiet hallway, I followed him back to his spacious corner office. Jamal, do you have a moment? I asked, stepping lightly through his open door. He looked up from his desk, a fleeting shadow of deep discomfort crossing his features before he rapidly masked it with his typical polished corporate grin. Of course, Kendra. Come on in, have a seat. I declined the chair and remained standing tall. I kept my voice incredibly calm, measured, and completely devoid of the intense rage that was currently boiling in my veins. I would like to deeply understand the professional metrics used for this promotion decision, Jamal. I have successfully run the entire data infrastructure for 5 years. Our absolute zero downtime record is my personal design. I would appreciate some direct clarity on exactly where my performance fell short. Jamal leaned back in his plush leather chair, comfortably steepling his fingers together. He deliberately did not look me in the eye, focusing instead on a spot on the wall behind me. Kendra, nobody is questioning your technical skills for a second. You are phenomenal at what you do. Honestly, you are the absolute best architect we have in this entire building. Then why was I passed over for someone with exactly 8 months of experience who clearly lacks even a basic fundamental understanding of our database architecture? I asked smoothly, keeping my tone inquisitive rather than accusatory. Jamal sighed heavily, putting on a highly patronizing fatherly tone that made my skin crawl. Leadership is about so much more than just staring at data logs and writing complex code in the dark, Kendra. It is heavily about cultural fit. It is about being approachable, building vibrant team morale, and projecting the right enthusiastic energy to the senior executives. Ashley has that special spark. She is bubbly, she brings people together effortlessly, and she is a fantastic, welcoming face for the department. You are incredibly valuable to us, right exactly where you are. We desperately need you in the trenches, making sure the complex system stays stable and secure. You are the essential backbone here. Cultural fit, approachable, bubbly. The coded language was deafeningly loud and sickeningly familiar. I was a highly educated, highly competent African American woman who came to work, kept my head down, solved massive catastrophic failures that nobody else could fix, and prioritized functional efficiency over meaningless office politics. I was not deemed bubbly. I did not waste company time organizing cupcake hours or gossiping in the break room. Therefore, my undeniable technical brilliance was viewed merely as grunt labor. I was the reliable, invisible workhorse meant to pull the heavy cart up the hill, while Ashley, with her charming smile, her complete lack of technical skill, and her comfortable privilege, was chosen to hold the reins and take the glory. Jamal wanted me to stay locked in the basement doing all the heavy lifting, so Ashley could stand beautifully on the balcony and accept the applause. But Jamal fundamentally did not understand the architecture of his own department. He did not understand that the brilliantly streamlined reporting system he had just praised in front of the entire company was not actually integrated into the corporate server. He did not realize that the flawless uptime he arrogantly bragged to the executives about was entirely and exclusively dependent on a highly specific suite of proprietary background scripts living exclusively on my personal machine. The company did not own my solutions, I owned them, and I was currently licensing them to this firm for the low, generous price of absolutely nothing. I truly thought I was just a background worker bee. He genuinely believed I would swallow the massive disrespect, quietly go back to my desk, and continue fixing Ashley's inevitable disastrous mistakes because I was loyal, dependable, and conditioned to accept less than I deserved. I looked at Jamal sitting smugly in his expensive chair, utterly and completely clueless about the fragile digital house of cards he was currently standing on. I did not argue with his assessment. I did not raise my voice in anger. I did not demand corporate justice or threaten to report his blatant bias to human resources. I simply let a quiet, genuine, and deeply peaceful smile spread across my face. I understand completely, Jamal. I said, my voice smooth, pleasant, and remarkably steady. You need someone with a completely different energy for the leadership role. I truly appreciate the honest feedback. Jamal visibly relaxed, exhaling a heavy sigh of profound relief. He thought he had managed the difficult situation perfectly. He thought he had successfully pacified the disgruntled workhorse and kept his department running smoothly. I am so glad you see it that way, Kendra, he said warmly. I knew I could count on you to be a mature team player. Ashley is really going to need your advanced technical support as she transitions into this demanding new role. Absolutely, I replied softly. I will make sure the transition reflects exactly the level of technical support she truly deserves. I turned and walked out of his office, the quiet click of the heavy door closing behind me, sealing their inevitable fate. I walked calmly back to my desk, sitting down in front of my dual monitors. I looked at the thousands of lines of elegant code flowing across the dark screen, the intricate digital safety nets I had painstakingly woven on my own time to catch every single mistake my new boss was about to make. The company wanted to promote a cultural fit over actual competence. They were about to learn exactly how much a cultural fit costs when the servers crash and burn. The drive to my brother's house in the upscale northern suburbs gave me exactly 45 minutes to perfect my mask. Malik and Ashley lived in a pristine, sprawling brick home with a meticulously manicured lawn and a 3-car garage. It was the kind of house that required a very specific income bracket to maintain. I pulled my sedan into the long driveway and parked right behind Ashley's brand new luxury SUV. I looked at the gleaming chrome on her vehicle and felt a dark, amused flutter in my chest. I knew for a fact that SUV was financed entirely on the salary she was only drawing because I had spent the last 8 months quietly fixing her catastrophic database errors before the executives could notice. I grabbed the expensive bottle of red wine I had purchased earlier and walked up to the heavy oak front door. Before I could even press the doorbell, the door swung open. Malik stood there wearing a crisp button-down shirt and a tense, overly bright smile. My older brother had always been the golden boy of our family. He was a charismatic corporate lawyer who believed that maintaining peace and projecting the right image were the only things that truly mattered in life. "Kendra, you made it," he said, pulling me into a quick, rigid hug. His grip on my shoulders was just a fraction too tight, communicating a clear warning before I had even crossed the threshold. I stepped inside the foyer, immediately hit by the loud, boisterous sounds of a celebration in full swing. From the living room, I could hear Ashley's signature high-pitched laugh echoing over the clinking of expensive crystal glasses. She was holding court with my parents and a few of her friends, soaking up the praise and attention like a sponge. The entire house smelled of catered garlic butter and roasted rosemary, a glaring reminder that Ashley did not cook but loved to host. Before I could take off my coat and walk into the living room to greet my parents, Malik suddenly grabbed my elbow. He steered me away from the noise, pulling me abruptly into the massive, quiet kitchen. The heavy swinging door shut behind us, cutting off Ashley's laughter. Malik let go of my arm and leaned against the cold marble of the kitchen island, crossing his arms over his chest. He looked at me with that familiar, patronizing older brother expression he had been using since we were teenagers. "Look, Jamal called me this afternoon," Malik said, his voice dropping to a harsh, conspiratorial whisper. "He told me how the quarterly review meeting went. He told me about the promotion." I set the bottle of wine down on the granite counter with a soft, deliberate thud. I looked at my brother, waiting for the apology. I waited for him to express even a shred of outrage that his brilliant, dedicated sister had just been robbed of a promotion by a woman who routinely locked herself out of her own email account. Instead, Malik sighed heavily, rubbing the back of his neck as if I were a massive inconvenience he had to manage. "I need you to be the bigger person tonight, Kendra," he demanded, pointing a firm finger at me. "I know you are probably feeling bitter right now, but this is Ashley's night. This promotion is huge for us. It means a massive bonus. It means security for our family. I will not have you walking out there with an attitude and ruining her celebration just because you are upset." I stared at him. My own brother. The man I had spent countless weekends tutoring through college calculus because he could not grasp the formulas. The man who had practically begged me to secure his wife a job at my firm because she had been fired twice in 2 years for sheer incompetence. "You think I am bitter, Malik?" I asked, keeping my voice incredibly smooth and level. "I was the one who built the infrastructure she just got promoted to manage. She does not know how to run those systems." Malik rolled his eyes, waving his hand dismissively, as if my 5 years of technical architecture were nothing more than a minor clerical task. "Come on, Kendra, stop exaggerating. Jamal told me you do great work in the background, but you just do not have the right energy for upper management. You are too intense. You intimidate people. You like sitting in the dark writing code, and that is fine. But leadership requires a different kind of personality. Ashley knows how to connect with a room. She is a people person. She has that vibrant energy the executives want to see. The absolute audacity of his words hit me like a physical strike. He was regurgitating the exact same racist, sexist corporate buzzwords Jamal had used in the office. He was looking right at his highly educated, deeply competent African-American sister and telling me that my relentless hard work was inherently less valuable than his white wife's bubbly, aggressively mediocre personality. He truly believed that Ashley deserved to be my boss, simply because she smiled more during staff meetings. You think her energy is what keeps our multi-million-dollar clients from terminating their contracts? I asked quietly, taking a slow step toward him. I think you need to stop being jealous of my wife, Malik snapped back, his voice rising with defensive anger. She earned this. She networked, she put herself out there, and she played the corporate game better than you did. That is how the real world works. You need to swallow your pride, walk into that dining room and support her for the sake of this family's peace. Do not make this difficult, Kendra. Do not be the angry, resentful sister tonight. I looked at Malik's flushed face. I looked at the expensive stainless steel appliances surrounding us, paid for by the illusion of Ashley's competence. I realized in that exact moment that Malik was not just an enabler. He was actively complicit in my subjugation. He did not care about fairness, and he certainly did not care about my career. He only cared about maintaining his comfortable lifestyle and avoiding any disruption to his perfect suburban narrative. He needed me to stay quietly in my place doing the heavy lifting, so he and his wife could continue to profit off my silent labor. The cold, absolute clarity I had felt in Jamal's office returned, wrapping around my heart like a sheet of ice. I realized there was absolutely no point in arguing with a man who was deeply committed to misunderstanding my value. I did not need to defend my brilliance to someone who benefited from hiding it. I relaxed my shoulders and let out a soft, agreeable breath. I offered my brother a perfectly pleasant, empty smile. You are entirely right, Malik, I said, my voice dripping with total compliance. I completely understand how the real world works now. You do not have to worry about me causing a scene or being difficult. I am going to walk out there and give Ashley exactly the level of support she deserves. I will not ruin her big night. Malik visibly deflated, his tense posture melting away as a smug, satisfied grin spread across his face. He thought he had successfully put me in my place. He thought his authority as the older brother had brought the rebellious workhorse back into line. That is what I am talking about, he said, patting my arm patronizingly. I knew you would see reason. Thank you, Kendra. Now grab that wine and let us go celebrate. They are about to serve dinner. He turned and pushed through the swinging door, completely oblivious to the fact that I was not stepping into line. I was stepping onto a battlefield, and I was holding all the ammunition. I picked up the wine bottle, my grip steady and calm, and followed him into the dining room to watch the office favorite take her victory lap. I walked into the dining room just as Malik took his seat at the head of the long mahogany table. The space was an interior designer's dream, filled with plush velvet chairs, sparkling silver cutlery, and a massive floral centerpiece that completely blocked my view of my father sitting across from me. I took the only empty seat left, conveniently located at the far end of the table next to the kitchen door, the designated spot for the family afterthought. Ashley was practically glowing. She wore a tailored white blazer that commanded attention, holding a crystal glass of champagne, while my mother leaned in to hang on to her every word. The catered dinner was served by hired help, a detail Ashley made sure to point out loudly, so everyone knew they had spared no expense for her victory lap. I quietly unfolded my linen napkin and focused on the roasted chicken on my plate, preparing myself for a grueling evening of theatrical corporate bragging. For the first 45 minutes, the conversation was exclusively dominated by Ashley, detailing her rigorous path to the top. I chewed my food methodically while listening to a masterclass in aggressive mediocrity. She threw around technical buzzwords with absolute reckless abandon, completely butchering their meanings. She talked animatedly about synergizing our cloud infrastructure and optimizing the data pipelines for maximum aesthetic output. I took a slow sip of my water, hiding my amusement. Data pipelines do not have an aesthetic output, and our servers are not cloud-based. They are physically located on the third floor of our building. She had just been promoted to run a department she fundamentally did not comprehend, and she was currently bragging about it to a table of people who knew even less than she did. My parents were absolutely enraptured. My mother praised Ashley for breaking the glass ceiling, completely ignoring the fact that her actual daughter had been the sole data architect holding that same ceiling up for 5 years. My father raised his glass to toast her incredible work ethic. Malik sat back in his chair, puffing his chest out with pride, casting occasional warning glances down the table in my direction to ensure I was maintaining my agreeable expression. I gave him a pleasant, close-lipped smile every time our eyes met. I was playing my part perfectly. As the hired servers cleared our dinner plates and began bringing out slices of rich chocolate cake, Ashley tapped her silver spoon against her champagne flute. The light ringing sound instantly silenced the table. She stood up, smoothing her blazer, and beamed at her captive audience. "I just want to say a few words." Ashley began placing a hand over her heart in a gesture of profound manufactured humility. "I am so incredibly blessed to have this family supporting me. Stepping into the vice president role is a massive undertaking, but knowing I have all of your love behind me makes the burden so much lighter. It takes a village to run a corporate department, and I am just so grateful to be leading such a dynamic, functional team." The table erupted into polite, admiring applause. I clapped softly, matching their rhythm, waiting for the inevitable pivot. I knew Ashley well enough to know this speech was not just about thanking her audience, it was about establishing dominance. Ashley reached into the pocket of her blazer and pulled out a small, crisp white envelope. She walked around the perimeter of the table, her heels clicking sharply against the hardwood floor, until she stopped right behind my chair. The entire room turned to watch us. "Of course, a good leader is only as strong as her team," Ashley said, resting her manicured hands heavily on my shoulders. I stiffened slightly, but kept my gaze fixed forward. "And I am so lucky to have my sister-in-law on my staff. Kendra is such a hard worker. She is always in the background, keeping her head down and typing away." She reached over my shoulder and dropped the white envelope onto the table right next to my chocolate cake. "Go ahead and open it, Kendra," she urged, her voice pitched loudly so my parents could hear how exceptionally generous she was being. I picked up the envelope. It was unsealed. I slid my fingers inside and pulled out a plastic gift card to a generic corporate coffee chain. I looked at the bold numbers printed in the corner, $50. Since I officially step into the vice president role on Monday morning, I need to make sure my favorite worker bee is fully caffeinated, Ashley declared to the room, patting my shoulder patronizingly. "I know you love your coffee, Kendra. Consider it a little appreciation bonus from your new boss." A chorus of warm approvals echoed around the table. My mother smiled warmly, commenting on how thoughtful and sweet Ashley was to remember her employees. Malik shot me a pointed, meaningful look, silently ordering me to express my deepest gratitude for the incredible generosity his wife had just bestowed upon me. $50. She had stolen a promotion that came with a $70,000 pay increase, a corporate expense account, and stock options, and she was currently attempting to buy my continued silent servitude with $50 of store credit at a drive-through coffee shop. The sheer, unadulterated audacity was almost breathtaking. I looked down at the small piece of plastic resting on the fine linen tablecloth, calculating the precise level of disrespect it represented. But Ashley was not finished. She leaned down slightly, bringing her face closer to mine, keeping her voice bright and conversational, as if she were simply asking me to pass the salt. "By the way, Kendra, I am going to need you to come into the office with me tomorrow morning, and probably Sunday too," Ashley said casually, dropping the actual purpose of this public performance right onto my plate. "I learn so much better with hands-on experience, and I really need you to sacrifice your weekend to walk me through the entire server architecture before Monday. We can grab lattes with your new gift card on the way in. Just a quick weekend deep dive so I am fully up to speed when I take over." The dining room was perfectly quiet. My parents nodded in approval at Ashley's incredible dedication to her new role, entirely missing the fact that she had just ordered me to surrender my entire weekend to train her for the job she had already accepted. Malik locked eyes with me from across the table, his jaw tense, daring me to refuse his wife's command in front of our parents. She did not want a quick weekend deep dive. She was utterly terrified. She had spent the last 8 months coasting on my background corrections, and now that she was officially in charge, she had suddenly realized she had absolutely no idea how to operate the administrative dashboard, let alone manage the complex data infrastructure of our largest clients. She needed me to hand over the keys to the kingdom and teach her how to drive a vehicle she had never even bothered to look at, all while disguising her desperate panic as a casual weekend favor between family members. She genuinely expected me to spend my Saturday and Sunday doing her job for her, compensated by a $50 piece of plastic and a condescending pat on the back. The air in the dining room grows thick with expectation. My parents are beaming. Malik is watching me like a hawk, waiting for me to play the role of the grateful subordinate. Ashley keeps her hands resting heavily on my shoulders, her manicured fingers digging slightly into my fabric, anchoring me in place. She expects a thank you. She expects a smile. She expects me to validate her fraudulent authority in front of our entire family. I look down at the plastic gift card resting beside my untouched slice of chocolate cake. I reach out and pick it up. I feel the smooth edges of the cheap plastic between my fingertips. I do not smile. I do not look up immediately. I take a slow, deep breath, centering myself in the quiet power of my own absolute competence. I gently place the gift card back inside the crisp white envelope. I press my index finger against the paper and slide it slowly across the polished mahogany table. The envelope glides smoothly, stopping exactly halfway between my plate and Ashley's crystal champagne flute. Ashley lifts her hands from my shoulders, taking a small step back. Her practiced smile falters for a fraction of a second, replaced by a flicker of genuine confusion. I turn my chair slightly and look Ashley directly in the eye. I keep my expression entirely neutral, projecting nothing but calm, professional detachment. I appreciate the gesture, Ashley. I say, my voice perfectly level and clear enough for everyone at the table to hear. However, I will not be available this weekend to walk you through the server architecture, or any other weekend for that matter. I am also completely unavailable on Monday. The silence that crashes down over the dining room is absolute. The polite, admiring murmurs vanish instantly. My mother freezes with her wineglass halfway to her mouth. My father drops his fork against his porcelain plate with a loud clatter. Ashley stares at me, her eyes widening as the reality of my refusal registers. She is so accustomed to my silent compliance that a direct, unyielding denial simply does not compute in her brain. "What do you mean you are unavailable?" Ashley asks, her voice losing its bubbly cadence and dropping into a sharp, nervous pitch. "We have a massive transition on Monday. Jamal specifically said you would assist me with the onboarding process. You have to show me how the data pipelines operate." "I do not have to do anything of the sort," I reply smoothly. "My working hours are strictly Monday through Friday. My weekends are my personal time. As for Monday, you will have to manage the transition independently. You are the Vice President of Systems Operations now. I am sure a leader with your exceptional qualifications and vibrant energy will have no trouble navigating the network infrastructure without my assistance." Malik slams his hand flat against the mahogany table. The sudden noise makes my mother jump. "Kendra, that is enough!" He snaps, his voice vibrating with barely contained rage. "You are being completely ridiculous. Stop acting like a bitter child and apologize to my wife. You are going to go into that office tomorrow morning, and you are going to help her. This is about supporting family." I look at my older brother. I look at the man who happily watched me get passed over for a promotion I earned with 5 years of relentless labor, just so his chronically incompetent wife could buy a luxury SUV. There is no anger left in my chest. There is no sadness. There is only a profound, liberating emptiness. I owe this man absolutely nothing. I stand up from the table. I do not rush. I smoothly push my heavy velvet chair back, adjusting my dress with steady hands. "I am leaving," I announce quietly to the room. "Enjoy the rest of the cake." I turn my back on my stunned parents and walk purposefully out of the dining room. I cross the sprawling foyer and open the coat closet, pulling my trench coat from its wooden hanger. I hear Malik's heavy footsteps stomping rapidly across the hardwood floor behind me. He is shouting my name, demanding that I come back to the table, demanding that I show respect. I do not engage. I slip my arms into my coat, grab my purse from the entryway bench, and walk out the heavy oak front door into the crisp, cool night air. I walk briskly down the paved walkway toward my sedan. The porch lights cast long shadows across the perfectly manicured lawn. Malik bursts through the front door, leaving it wide open behind him. The golden light from the foyer spills out into the darkness as he chases me down the driveway. "You are ruining everything!" Malik screams, his voice echoing loudly through the quiet, affluent suburban neighborhood. "You are throwing a massive temper tantrum because you are jealous. You are jealous that Ashley has the personality for leadership and you do not. You are destroying the peace in this family over a stupid job. You need to grow up and accept that you are not the right fit." I reach my car and unlock the doors. I do not turn around to face him. I do not try to defend my technical brilliance or explain the massive injustice of the quarterly review meeting. Arguing with a man committed to my subjugation is a complete waste of my breath. I open the driver's side door and slide into the comfortable leather seat. Malik reaches my car just as I pull the door shut. He grabs the door handle, trying to pull it open, but the automatic locks engage with a solid, satisfying click. He slaps his flat palm violently against my driver's side window. His face is contorted with fury, his mouth moving rapidly as he continues to scream insults and accusations at me through the thick glass. He demands I roll the window down. He demands I listen to him. He demands my submission. I look at my brother through the glass. His voice is completely muffled, reduced to meaningless, frantic noise. I start the engine. The dashboard illuminates, casting a soft blue glow inside the cabin. I shift the car into reverse. Malik is forced to step back, waving his arms in the air in a display of pure, impotent rage. I do not roll down the window. I do not give him a final glance. I simply back out of the long driveway, shift into drive, and press the accelerator. I drive away into the night, leaving the toxic illusion of family loyalty in my rearview mirror. The drive from the affluent northern suburbs back into the heart of downtown Atlanta takes exactly 32 minutes. I do not turn on the radio. I drive in complete enveloping silence, letting the rhythmic hum of my tires on the asphalt wash away the lingering echoes of Malik screaming in my rearview mirror. The anger that had briefly spiked in my chest during that disastrous dinner has completely evaporated. In its place is a profound crystalline clarity. I know exactly what needs to be done. I pull into the underground parking garage of my corporate office building just before 9 o'clock. The massive concrete structure is practically deserted, save for a few cleaning crew vans and the overnight security vehicles. I park in my usual spot, turn off the engine, and sit in the quiet cabin of my car for a long moment. I am not mourning the loss of my job. I am mourning the 5 years of misplaced loyalty I gave to a company that viewed my brilliance as a cheap commodity. I step out of the car, the sharp echo of my heels ringing against the concrete, and walk toward the private elevator banks. I swipe my security badge against the glowing red scanner. The light turns a welcoming green and the heavy metal doors slide open. I press the button for the 12th floor, leaning back against the mirrored wall as the elevator rapidly ascends. I watch the floor numbers tick upward in bright digital digits. There is no dramatic music playing in my head. There is no cinematic montage of my best moments at this company flashing before my eyes. There is only the steady, mechanical rise of the elevator, bringing me closer to my absolute liberation. The doors glide open to reveal the sprawling open-concept floor plan of the Data and Operations Department. During the day, this floor is a chaotic symphony of ringing phones, clattering keyboards, and the constant frantic chatter of project managers demanding immediate results. Tonight, it is entirely silent. The overhead fluorescent lights have automatically dimmed to a low energy-saving setting, casting long, sharp shadows across the endless rows of gray cubicles. The only sound is the low, persistent drone of the commercial HVAC system pushing cold air through the ceiling vents. I walk down the main aisle, passing by Jamal's massive corner office with its frosted glass walls and imported leather furniture. I do not even glance inside. I pass by Ashley's new prominently located desk, which is already adorned with congratulatory balloons and a ridiculous oversized nameplate that Malik must have bought for her. I keep walking until I reach the back corner of the floor, the quiet, isolated section where the senior data architects are kept out of sight. I stop in front of my workspace. It is a highly functional utilitarian setup with three large high-resolution monitors, a heavy-duty mechanical keyboard I purchased with my own money, and a comfortable ergonomic chair I had to fight human resources to approve. This desk has been my second home for half a decade. I have eaten countless lukewarm dinners sitting right here debugging catastrophic server failures while the rest of the firm slept soundly. I have sacrificed my weekends, my holidays, and my physical health in this exact chair, making sure the digital foundation of this company never cracked under the weight of their own incompetence. I walk over to the supply closet and grab a single sturdy cardboard box. I unfold it, taping the bottom securely, and place it squarely in the center of my desk. I begin to pack. My movements are methodical, precise, and entirely devoid of sentimentality. I am not throwing things into the box in a fit of rage. I am executing a calculated extraction. I unplug my mechanical keyboard and carefully wrap the braided cord around it, placing it at the bottom of the box. I pack the expensive noise-canceling headphones that allowed me to block out the mindless corporate gossip. I grab my personal stash of premium tea bags, the custom ceramic mug I bought during a trip to Chicago, and the specialized blue light blocking glasses that kept my eyes from aching after 12-hour coding marathons. Every item I place into the cardboard box represents a piece of my personal comfort that I had to bring into this space to make their relentless exploitation bearable. I open the bottom drawer of my filing cabinet. Inside is a small framed photograph of Malik and me from my college graduation. We are both smiling brightly, his arms slung protectively around my shoulders. I look at the man in the picture. Picture the older brother who used to defend me, who used to celebrate my sharp mind. I compare that memory to the man who just stood in a suburban driveway screaming at me for refusing to do his wife's job for free. I do not feel sad. I feel a quiet, absolute finality. I take the framed photograph, walk over to the large gray recycling bin at the end of the aisle, and drop it inside. It hits the plastic bottom with a hollow thud. I return to my desk to finish the physical purge. I gather my favorite ergonomic pens, the high-quality notebook I use to map out complex database architectures, and a soft cashmere cardigan. I keep draped over my chair for when the office air conditioning becomes too aggressive. The box is now full. My physical footprint in this corporate machine has been reduced to a single, easily transportable square of cardboard. I look at the small, resilient pothos plant sitting on the corner of my desk. It is the only living thing in this sterile environment that has managed to thrive under these fluorescent lights. I pick up my water bottle, walk over to this break room water cooler, and fill it. I return to my desk and carefully pour the water into the plant's ceramic pot, watching the dry soil eagerly absorb the moisture. I will be taking the plant with me, of course, but I want it to be hydrated for the journey. I wipe down the smooth surface of my desk with a sanitizing wipe, erasing any lingering smudges or coffee rings. I wipe down the armrests of my chair and the sleek black bezels of the three company-owned monitors. I leave the workspace looking pristine, untouched, and utterly anonymous. The physical detachment is complete. My desk looks exactly as it did on my very first day 5 years ago. There is no trace left of the brilliant, dedicated woman who kept this department from drowning. But the physical packing was always going to be the easy part. The true value I brought to this company does not exist in customized mugs or mechanical keyboards. My true value exists purely in the digital realm. I pull my desk chair back and sit down one final time. I reach out and tap the spacebar of the standard company-issued keyboard I have plugged back into the docking station. The three large monitors instantly wake up from their sleep mode, casting a bright, harsh white light across my face in the dim office. The login screen blinks steadily, demanding my credentials. I crack my knuckles, roll my shoulders back, and place my fingers on the keys. It is time to prepare for the digital purge. It is time to meticulously detach my personal proprietary architecture from their fragile ecosystem and let them finally experience the true cost of their cultural fit. Typing my credentials into the login prompt feels entirely different tonight. I enter my username and my complex 32-character password with practiced muscle memory. My phone vibrates on the desk beside me with the dual-factor authentication request. I tap approve. The screen transitions from the harsh white login portal to the deep black background of my primary administrative terminal. Lines of green and gold text begin cascading down the monitors as the system securely connects to the central corporate servers. I am looking at the beating heart of the entire analytics firm. From this vantage point, I can see every single data pipeline flowing through the company network. I can see the massive datasets belonging to our top-tier clients, including the highly sensitive accounts owned by Mr. Sterling. For 5 years, I have watched over this digital landscape like a silent guardian. When I first inherited this network, it was a fragile and terrifying mess. Client reports would take 14 hours to generate, and the databases would crash if more than 10 queries were run simultaneously. The company executives threw money at expensive software packages that did absolutely nothing to fix the fundamental architectural flaws. They did not need new software. They needed someone who actually understood how to optimize a severely bottlenecked infrastructure. So I took it upon myself to build a solution. I did not do it during corporate hours because Jamal constantly loaded my daily schedule with endless troubleshooting tickets and meaningless status meetings. I built the solution on my own time. I sat at my kitchen table on Saturday mornings and Sunday nights working on my personal laptop. I wrote a highly sophisticated suite of application programming interface scripts. These proprietary scripts acted as an invisible intelligent bridge between the clunky corporate databases and the client-facing portals. My scripts were beautiful. They automatically intercepted malformed SQL queries before they could reach the main server and crash the system. They patched catastrophic memory leaks in real time. Most importantly, my scripts took the raw, unformatted data exports and instantly transformed them into the sleek, flawless automated reports that Jamal proudly handed to the executive board every single quarter. The exact same automated reports that Ashley boldly claimed she had streamlined. Ashley had absolutely no idea how those reports actually generated. Her entire workflow consisted of clicking a single green button on her dashboard and waiting for my background code to do all the heavy lifting. If she typed a client name wrong, my script caught it and auto-corrected the spelling. If she requested a data pull that was too large, my script throttled the request so the server would not panic and shut down. My intellectual property was essentially a digital babysitter, constantly cleaning up after a highly paid, grossly incompetent toddler. And now the toddler has been promoted to run the entire daycare. I open my secure command line interface. I am not here to commit corporate sabotage. Sabotage implies malicious destruction of company property. Sabotage implies deleting client data or introducing a destructive virus into the mainframe. I have zero interest in crossing any legal lines or compromising my flawless professional ethics. I am simply here to pick up my personal tools and go home. The company never paid for my scripts. Jamal never authorized their creation, and he certainly never compensated me for the hundreds of hours of personal time I spent writing them. My employment contract clearly stipulates that any tools created entirely on personal equipment outside of designated working hours remain the exclusive intellectual property of the employee. I own the bridge. The company has simply been walking across it for free because I was generous enough to let them. That generosity officially expired the moment Ashley handed me a $50 gift card and ordered me to train her on my own weekends. I navigate to the core directory where my personal cloud server links to the corporate network. I pull up the master configuration file. It is incredibly simple to undo. All I have to do is revoke the access tokens and sever the secure handshake between my external server and their internal databases. I place my fingers on the keyboard and begin typing the commands. Revoke access key alpha. The terminal blinks confirming the command. The automated error correction protocol goes offline. Revoke access key beta. The terminal blinks again. The dynamic memory allocation script shuts down. Revoke access key delta. The automated reporting pipeline, the crown jewel of Ashley's completely fraudulent resume, is instantly terminated. I watch the network traffic on my secondary monitor. Instantly, I can see the corporate reverting back to its raw default state. The digital crutches have been kicked away. The safety nets have been completely dismantled. The system is not broken. It is simply functioning exactly as it was originally designed to function by the highly paid executives who refuse to understand technology. Without my scripts, silently filtering the background noise, the server memory usage begins to tick upward slightly. It is nothing catastrophic yet, because it is a Friday night and the network traffic is low. But on Monday morning when 50 data analysts log in and begin running massive queries simultaneously, the system is going to experience a severe shock. When Ashley clicks that green button on her dashboard to generate Mr. Sterling's daily analytics report, she is not going to get a sleek formatted document. She is going to get a raw, unparsed text file containing 4 million lines of completely unreadable code. And because she does not know how to write a basic parsing script, she will be completely paralyzed. She will try to call the IT help desk. The help desk will look at the issue and tell her they do not support automated reporting architectures. They will tell her to contact the senior data architect. But the senior data architect will not be there to answer the phone. The new vice president of systems operations is going to have to actually operate the system. She is going to have to justify her massive salary, her luxury vehicle, and her supposedly vibrant leadership energy by fixing a problem she fundamentally cannot comprehend. I feel a deep, profound sense of peace washing over me as I verify the disconnection. I run a final comprehensive scan of the corporate servers to ensure my footprint is completely erased. I double-check that absolutely no company data was deleted, altered, or compromised in any way. My professional integrity is absolute. I have left their property exactly as I found it. I have simply removed my uncompensated magic from their equation. I close the command terminal. I log out of the primary administrative portal. The 3 large monitors return to their default lock screens displaying the generic company logo floating against a blue background. I switch off the monitors one by one. The corner of the office plunges into soft shadow. I sit in the quiet darkness for a moment, breathing in the cool, conditioned air of the building. For 5 years I carried the weight of this entire department on my shoulders. I absorbed the stress, the panic, and the late-night emergencies so people like Jamal and Ashley could sleep soundly and collect their bonuses. I twisted myself into knots trying to prove my worth to people who were deeply committed to overlooking me. I am no longer carrying their burden. The weight is gone. I am finally free. I stand up from the ergonomic chair and push it neatly under the desk. I pick up my cardboard box containing my mechanical keyboard, my custom mug, my blue light glasses, and my resilient desk plant. The box is surprisingly light. I turn my back on the workstation and walk down the long, silent aisle toward the glass doors. I do not look back at Jamal's corner office. I do not look at Ashley's decorated desk. I walk straight to the elevator, press the button, and wait for the doors to open. The digital purge is complete. The stage is set for Monday morning. All that is left to do now is hand in my resignation and disappear into the mountains. I set my cardboard box on the floor for just a moment. I need to make this official. I pull my personal smartphone from my pocket and open my email client. I have zero intention of waking those company monitors back up. I tap the compose button. In the recipient line, I add Jamal and the Director of Human Resources. I leave Malik and Ashley completely off the chain. They are not my superiors, and frankly, they no longer matter. I stare at the blank subject line. I type the word resignation. Nothing else. No urgent flags, no passive-aggressive apologies, no polite corporate fluff. In the body of the email, I do not list my extensive grievances. I do not point out the blatant nepotism, the sheer technical incompetence of the new vice president, or the thousands of hours of unpaid labor I have donated to this firm over the past 5 years. I do not mention the proprietary automated scripts I just disconnected. Writing a long emotional manifesto would only give Jamal the satisfaction of labeling me an angry, bitter former employee. It would allow him to spin a comfortable narrative that I left because I was incredibly jealous and simply could not handle the dynamic new leadership structure. I refuse to give him a single word he can weaponize against me. True power lies in absolute unbothered silence. I type exactly 2 sentences, Please accept this email as formal notification that I am resigning from my position as Senior Data Architect, effective immediately. I have left my company-issued equipment on my desk. I hit send. There is a small swoosh sound from my phone speaker, and just like that, the digital tether is permanently severed. My 5-year tenure at this analytics firm is officially over. I pick up my plastic employee identification badge from my purse. The photograph on the front was taken on my very first day. I look so young in the picture, so eager to prove myself, so ready to climb a corporate ladder that was secretly missing all its rungs. I place the badge directly in the center of my barren desk. I take my sleek silver company-issued laptop and set it right next to the badge, aligning the edges perfectly parallel to each other. The workstation looks like a sterile museum exhibit. It is a pristine, undisturbed monument to a dedicated workhorse who simply decided to stop pulling the heavy plow. I pick up my cardboard box and walk toward the exit. The thick glass doors of the data department slide open with a soft hiss and close silently behind me. I step into the elevator and press the button for the lobby. The descent is smooth and rapid. When the doors open on the ground floor, the massive marble lobby is completely empty, except for the overnight security guard, a nice older gentleman named Calvin, sitting behind the main reception desk. "Have a good night, Miss Kendra," Calvin calls out, noticing the box in my hands, but professional enough not to ask any prying questions. "You too, Calvin," I reply, giving him a warm, genuine smile. "Take care of yourself." I push through the heavy revolving doors and step out into the crisp, cool Atlanta night. The humid air feels incredibly fresh against my skin. The city around me is alive with the distant sounds of highway traffic and glowing streetlights, but I feel entirely detached from the endless corporate grind. I walk across the concrete parking garage to my sedan, pop the trunk, and place my single cardboard box inside. I close the trunk with a firm, satisfying thud. I get into the driver's seat and shut the heavy door, sealing myself inside the quiet private cabin of my car. I place my hands on the smooth leather steering wheel. I do not start the engine right away. Instead, I pick up my smartphone from the center console. My screen is completely clear of notifications, but I know that reality will not last long. By Monday morning, this device is going to become a frantic, vibrating beacon of absolute corporate panic. I swipe down on the screen to open the control center. I press my finger against the small crescent moon icon. The Do Not Disturb mode activates instantly, turning the icon a bright solid purple. I navigate to my settings and customize the focus mode. I block all incoming calls, all text messages, and all email notifications. I set the emergency bypass to 0. Nobody from my family and nobody from that office has the privilege of reaching me anymore. The silence that follows is profound and heavy. It is the very first time in 5 years that I am not on call, not actively monitoring a fragile server, and not anticipating a catastrophic weekend failure. The silence sounds like absolute freedom. I start the engine. The dashboard lights up, casting a comforting blue glow across the cabin. I pull out of the parking garage and merge onto the highway, heading straight out of the city limits. I am not going back to my house. Malik knows exactly where I live, and I have absolutely no desire to deal with his inevitable temper tantrum when Jamal calls him on Monday morning to complain about my abrupt departure. I have made other arrangements. I merge onto the interstate, pointing my car north toward the Blue Ridge Mountains. Earlier this evening, right before I walked into that disastrous family dinner, I booked myself a premium suite at one of the most exclusive luxury spa resorts in North Georgia. It is a secluded, high-end wellness retreat, nestled deep in the forest, completely disconnected from the chaotic, suffocating noise of the corporate world. I paid for it using the exact same credit card I have been funneling my substantial savings into for years. The drive takes just over 2 hours. As I leave the bright, glowing skyline of Atlanta behind me, the landscape gradually shifts. The massive concrete overpasses give way to winding, tree-lined mountain roads, illuminated only by the bright sweep of my headlights. The air rolling through the vents smells like pine and damp earth. I roll the windows down just a fraction, letting the cool mountain breeze wash over my face and tangle my hair. I think about Jamal sitting in his expensive corner office on Monday morning, realizing the invisible safety nets are gone. I think about Ashley proudly trying to click that single green button to generate the multi-million-dollar client reports only to be met with a frozen screen of raw, unreadable data blocks. I think about Malik realizing his wife is fundamentally incapable of performing the highly paid job he aggressively defended. I do not feel a single ounce of guilt. I gave them exactly what they asked for. They wanted a cultural fit to run the department. Now the cultural fit is entirely in charge. I pull up to the heavily guarded entrance of the mountain resort just before midnight. The wrought iron security gate swings open, welcoming me into a sprawling oasis of warm ambient lighting, rustic stone architecture, and serene water features. I hand my keys to the valet, tip him generously, and walk into the grand lobby to check in. The smiling receptionist hands me a heavy keycard and a printed schedule of my weekend spa treatments. A deep tissue massage, a hot stone therapy session, and unrestricted access to the thermal mineral pools. I ride the elevator up to my premium suite. When I open the door, I am greeted by a massive king-sized bed, a roaring gas fireplace, and a private balcony overlooking the dark, silent forest canopy. I drop my purse on the plush armchair. I do not unpack my bags. I do not check my phone to see if anyone has noticed my email yet. I walk straight to the enormous soaking tub, turn on the hot water, and let the beautifully tiled room fill with thick, calming steam. I am going to spend the next 3 days doing absolutely nothing but resting, healing, and enjoying the magnificent peace of my own unbothered existence, while my former company learns the true devastating definition of a catastrophic system failure. Waking up on Saturday morning was an entirely foreign experience. For the last 5 years, my internal clock was hardwired to the high-pitched ping of server alerts. Even on weekends, my brain operated on a low hum of constant vigilance, waiting for a frantic text from Jamal or an automated email warning me about a memory leak. But this morning, there was absolutely nothing. I opened my eyes to a room bathed in soft, natural sunlight filtering through the heavy linen curtains of my mountain suite. The silence was so profound it almost felt heavy. I stretched my arms above my head, feeling the thick, luxurious hotel sheets against my skin. There was no laptop waiting on the nightstand. There was no emergency patching to do. There was only the gentle rustling of the wind through the pine trees outside my balcony. I spent the entire morning wrapped in a plush white terrycloth robe. I ordered an extravagant breakfast from room service, requesting a massive spread of buttermilk pancakes, fresh berries, smoked bacon, and a pot of artisan French press coffee. I carried my plate out to the private balcony and sat in the oversized wicker chair. The cool mountain air brushed against my face as I sipped my coffee and looked out over the endless rolling peaks of the Blue Ridge Mountains. I chewed my food slowly, savoring every single bite. I was not rushing to swallow a lukewarm bagel while typing lines of code with one hand. I was simply existing. By noon, I made my way down to the resort's award-winning spa. The moment I walked through the carved wooden doors, the scent of eucalyptus and lavender enveloped me. A soft-spoken attendant led me to a dimly lit therapy room for a 90-minute hot stone massage. As the masseuse worked the heated basalt stones into the deep, tight muscles of my upper back, I physically felt the toxic corporate environment leaving my body. The knotted tension in my shoulders was the direct result of hunching over a glowing screen at 3 a.m, desperately fixing Ashley's careless data entry errors. With every expert sweep of the therapist's hands, I let go of another unpaid hour. I let go of Jamal's condescending lectures about cultural fit. I let go of my brother's enabling gaslighting. I melted into the heated table, drifting into a state of absolute untethered tranquility. While I was floating in the thermal mineral pools that afternoon, I allowed my mind to briefly wander back to the city. I pictured the exact timeline of the unfolding disaster. It was Saturday afternoon. Normally, the highly complex database backup script I had written would trigger at exactly 2 o'clock. It was designed to pull the massive client ledgers, compress the files, and securely route them to the secondary storage servers. But that script was no longer residing on their network. At 2 o'clock, the main server would reach out to make the digital handshake. It would find empty space. It would fail completely silently, and instead of clearing the cache, it would begin stacking the raw, unprocessed data in the temporary holding folders. Sunday passed in a blissful, unhurried haze. I took a long, leisurely hike along a wooded trail, listening to the crunch of fallen leaves under my hiking boots. I breathed in air that had never been circulated through a commercial HVAC system. By Sunday evening, I was enjoying a spectacular dinner of pan-seared sea bass and a glass of expensive Pinot Noir in the resort's upscale dining room. I smiled, taking a slow sip of my wine, fully aware of what was happening to the temporary cache in Atlanta. By Sunday night, that cache would be dangerously overflowing. The system would be choking on its own unprocessed data, bloated and sluggish. Meanwhile, Ashley was likely out at a celebratory dinner with Malik, clinking champagne glasses and toasting to her brilliant new career, completely oblivious to the fact that her new digital empire was rapidly filling with invisible smoke. Monday morning arrived with a glorious lazy stretch. I did not set an alarm. I slept in until 10 o'clock, sinking deep into the mattress. When I finally decided to get out of bed, I ordered a fresh mimosa and drew a hot bath. As I sank into the fragrant, bubbling water, my imagination painted a vivid, highly satisfying picture of the current scene at the analytics firm. I imagined Jamal strutting into the office with his custom-tailored suit, carrying his expensive briefcase, ready to formally introduce his vibrant new vice president to the executive board. I pictured Ashley sitting at her newly decorated desk, surrounded by congratulatory balloons, booting up her computer with a confident, bubbly smile. At exactly 9 o'clock, she would open the administrative dashboard. She would move her mouse and click the bright green button designed to generate the Monday morning executive summary. And then absolutely nothing would happen. The cursor would turn into a spinning wheel. The dashboard would freeze. The massive bloated servers, no longer protected by my automated throttling scripts, would instantly panic under the weight of the raw data pull. I imagined the exact moment. The color drained from Ashley's face as the screen flashed a fatal gateway timeout error. I pictured her frantically clicking her mouse, her practiced corporate smile crumbling into genuine, breathless terror as the entire client portal crashed in real time. She would call the IT help desk. The technicians would look at the catastrophic failure and immediately route the urgent escalation back to her. After all, she was the vice president of systems operations. She was the one who had streamlined the workflow. She was the one who needed to fix it. I imagined Jamal standing in her cubicle, his arrogant composure shattering as he demanded answers she fundamentally could not provide. He would tell her to run the backup files, and she would have to admit she did not even know where the backup files were stored. I leaned my head back against the smooth porcelain of the bathtub and closed my eyes. The warm water soothed my skin. The bathroom was perfectly quiet, save for the soft popping of the bath bubbles. The contrast between my profound, luxurious peace and their absolute, undeniable panic was the sweetest reward I could have ever asked for. I spent the rest of my Monday lounging in my suite, ordering more room service and reading a novel I had neglected for months. I went to sleep that night with a clear conscience and a light heart. Tomorrow I would finally turn off my phone's do not disturb mode. But for now, the silence was absolute perfection. Tuesday morning arrived with a brilliant wash of golden light over the Blue Ridge Mountains. I woke up naturally, my body completely free of the deep, exhausting tension that had plagued me for the last 5 years. I ordered a light breakfast of fresh fruit and pastries to my room, along with a perfectly chilled bottle of champagne and freshly squeezed orange juice. I tied my thick hotel robe securely around my waist, poured myself a generous mimosa, and stepped out onto the private balcony. The air was crisp, tasting of pine and absolute freedom. I settled into the plush outdoor lounge chair, took a slow sip of my drink, and picked up my smartphone from the small glass table. It was time to open the floodgates. I swiped down on my screen and tapped the purple crescent moon icon, disabling the do not disturb mode that had shielded me since Friday night. For a split second, the phone remained perfectly still. Then the processor caught up with the network, and the device practically vibrated out of my hand. A relentless, cascading waterfall of notifications flooded my screen in rapid succession. The device chimed, buzzed, and flashed frantically as it downloaded 3 days of suppressed panic. When the digital storm finally settled, I looked at the little red notification bubbles dotting my home screen. I had 105 missed calls. I had 40 unread text messages. My voicemail inbox, which I had never let get past 2 messages in my entire professional career, was completely full. I smiled, a deep, satisfied grin spreading across my face. I set my phone on the table, activated the speakerphone, and dialed into my voicemail system. I leaned back in my chair, crossed my legs, and prepared to listen to a beautiful, chronologically ordered symphony of corporate destruction. The automated voice informed me that I had 30 new messages. I pressed 1 to listen to the first saved message, time-stamped Monday at 8:45 in the morning. Kendra, it is Jamal. The audio quality was crisp, carrying his signature tone of arrogant irritation. Human Resources forwarded me your email. Very funny. I get that you are feeling a little sensitive about the promotion, but we have a transition to execute today. I need you to log in remotely and show Ashley where you stored the transition documentation. Call me back immediately so we can get this over with. I took another sip of my mimosa. He actually thought my resignation was a bluff. He genuinely believed I was sitting at home waiting for him to validate my feelings before I dutifully handed over the keys to the kingdom. I pressed the button to skip to the next message, time-stamped Monday at 10:30 in the morning. The voice belonged to my brother Malik. Kendra, pick up your phone. Jamal just called me asking if I knew where you were. You are acting like a petulant child. Ashley is trying to do her job, and you are deliberately making things difficult by ignoring her emails. Stop throwing a tantrum, swallow your pride, and call your boss back. Do not embarrass me. I let out a soft, breathy laugh. Malik was still clinging to the delusion that he could manage me. He was still trying to protect his wife's unearned status by bullying me into submission. I deleted the message without a second thought and moved to the next, time-stamped Monday at 11:15 in the morning. It was Ashley. Her voice was pitched slightly higher than usual, attempting to sound authoritative, but failing miserably to mask her underlying anxiety. Hey Kendra, it is Ashley. Quick question for you. I am trying to run the midday automated export for the Sterling account, and the interface is just freezing. I cannot seem to find the run files anywhere on the shared drive. Just give me a quick call back so you can point me in the right direction. Thanks, Worker B. I closed my eyes and let the cool mountain breeze wash over my face. I could picture the exact scene in the office. Ashley sitting at her decorated desk, clicking the green button on her dashboard, and watching the screen freeze as the server choked on the massive unfiltered data query. She still thought it was a minor glitch. She still thought she just needed to find a missing file. I skipped forward, listening to the timeline of their panic escalate. By 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Jamal called again. The arrogant irritation was completely gone, replaced by a tight, breathless frustration. Kendra, this is no longer a joke. The client portal is lagging heavily, and the entire server is consuming memory at an unprecedented rate. IT is telling me the background throttling scripts are missing from the root directory. Tell me where you stored them. Now. By 2:30 in the afternoon, the situation had clearly devolved into an active disaster. Ashley called again, and this time the authoritative tone had completely vanished. She was practically hyperventilating into the receiver. Kendra, please pick up the phone. The database is entirely locked. I submitted a priority ticket to the IT help desk, and they rejected it. They told me that because I am the Vice President of Systems Operations, I need to resolve the SQL backlog myself. I do not know what SQL means, Kendra. Jamal is screaming at me. Please call me back. The beautiful irony of it all washed over me. The help desk technicians who had watched me quietly fix Ashley's catastrophic mistakes for 8 months were finally holding her accountable to her new title. If she was the vice president, she needed to act like one. The voicemails continued, an endless stream of desperate pleas and angry demands. Malik called 3 more times, his voice escalating from annoyed to furious to outright panicked. He accused me of jeopardizing his marriage, ruining his wife's career, and destroying our family. I listened to his frantic gaslighting with absolute indifference. He was realizing that his luxury lifestyle funded by Ashley's fraudulent corporate success was currently crashing into a brick wall. The final voicemail I listened to was time-stamped Tuesday morning, just 30 minutes before I had stepped out onto my balcony. It was Jamal. His voice was completely stripped of its polished corporate veneer. He sounded hollow, terrified, and utterly desperate. "Kendra, please." The message began with a heavy, ragged sigh. "The Sterling account is completely down. The portal has been offline for 14 hours. Mr. Sterling's team has been calling me all morning, and he is demanding an emergency meeting in 10 minutes. We are going to lose the contract. I am begging you. I will double your salary. I will give you whatever title you want. Just log in and fix the system, please." The message ended with a sharp click. The automated voice offered to save or delete the message. I pressed the delete button. I set my phone back down on the glass table. I looked out over the breathtaking expanse of the mountains, feeling the warm morning sun on my skin. I had given 5 years of flawless, dedicated service to a man who told me I lacked the cultural fit for leadership. I had watched my own brother betray me to prop up his incompetent wife. They had demanded I surrender my personal time, my intellectual property, and my dignity to maintain their comfortable illusion. They wanted a cultural fit. Now they were experiencing exactly what that culture produced without my silent labor holding up the walls. I picked up my mimosa and took a long, refreshing sip. The champagne tasted like victory. I was not going to log in. I was not going to fix the system. I was going to finish my breakfast, get dressed, and wait for the inevitable moment when the most powerful client in their portfolio decided to cut out the middleman. I spent the remainder of my Tuesday entirely unbothered by the digital meltdown occurring 300 miles away. I left my smartphone sitting face down on the glass table of my hotel balcony and went down to the resort courtyard. I read a novel by the outdoor fire pit, enjoyed a long, leisurely lunch, and spent 2 hours floating in the heated indoor pool. I refused to let their manufactured self-inflicted emergency dictate my peace of mind. For 5 years, my nervous system had been hijacked by their constant crises. I was finally reclaiming my internal quiet. It was not until after dinner, when I returned to my suite and settled into the plush armchair by the gas fireplace, that I decided to check the physical manifestation of their panic. I picked up my phone. The notification counter had climbed to absurd, almost comical numbers. But my focus shifted specifically to the text message thread from my brother. Reading Malik's messages in chronological order was like reading a psychological case study in entitlement and denial. His texts from Monday afternoon were brimming with his typical arrogant authority. He commanded me to stop throwing a tantrum. He ordered me to apologize to Ashley for walking out of the family dinner and demanded I log into the server immediately to prove I was a team player. I truly believed he could bully me back into submission just by using his aggressive older brother tone. But as the timeline progressed into Tuesday, the tone of his messages experienced a radical, incredibly satisfying shift. By Tuesday morning, the aggressive commands turned into frustrated bargaining. He texted me to say that Ashley was highly stressed and that I was making a very bad professional impression by ghosting the department. He suggested that if I just logged in for 10 minutes to point her to the right directory, he would personally ensure Jamal gave me a favorable performance review next quarter. He was still trying to dangle worthless carrots in front of my face, completely oblivious to the fact that I had already burned the entire farm to the ground. Then came the Tuesday afternoon texts. The reality of his wife's sheer, unadulterated incompetence had clearly crashed directly into his comfortable suburban illusion. "Kendra, please pick up the phone," he wrote at 2 o'clock. "Ashley is having a panic attack in the human resources bathroom. Jamal is threatening to write her up for insubordination because she cannot answer basic questions about the data pipelines. You know she does not understand this stuff. You are hanging her out to dry. We are family. You do not do this to family. Call me right now." I stared at the glowing screen, the firelight reflecting off the glass of my phone. The absolute hypocrisy was staggering. He was accusing me of hanging her out to dry, completely ignoring the fact that she had stolen my promotion, accepted a massive salary increase, and publicly humiliated me at a dinner table using money I effectively earned for her. He dared to invoke the word family, to guilt-trip me into doing unpaid labor to save his wife's fraudulent career. He expected me to be the sacrificial lamb to keep his perfect household intact. I did not type a reply. I simply locked the screen and went to sleep resting better than I had in half a decade. Wednesday morning arrived with a cool, refreshing mountain mist. It was my final day at the luxury spa. Checkout was at noon, and I had a long drive back to Atlanta ahead of me. I ordered a final pot of French press coffee, packed my bags with methodical precision, and sat down at the small writing desk near the window to handle my final piece of administrative housekeeping. I opened my voicemail application. There were 3 new messages from Jamal, all left between Tuesday night and early Wednesday morning. I played the most recent one, time-stamped at 7:15 this morning. Jamal did not sound like a polished, arrogant director of operations anymore. He sounded like a man standing on the deck of a sinking ship, watching the water rise above his knees. His voice was ragged, completely stripped of its usual corporate bravado. "Kendra, I do not know if you are listening to these, but I am begging you to call me Jamal," said his breathing shallow and rapid. "The Sterling client portal has completely crashed. The entire database is corrupted. We cannot generate a single report, and the raw data exports are freezing the entire mainframe. Mr. Sterling is livid. He is calling an emergency meeting this afternoon, and he is threatening to pull the multi-million-dollar contract. I will give you the vice president title. I will double your salary. I will fire Ashley today. Just please log into your terminal and deploy the background scripts. Name your price, Kendra. Just name it." The voicemail ended. The quiet room felt charged with the energy of his complete surrender. He was offering me the world. He was offering me the title I had earned, the money I deserved, and the immediate termination of the woman who had stolen my position. A lesser person might have taken the deal. A person desperate for validation might have called him back, logged into the server, and saved the day just to hear him beg for mercy. But I was not looking for his validation. I was looking for absolute permanent independence. Returning to that toxic environment, even as a highly paid savior, would only trap me in a different kind of cage. Jamal only valued me now because he was terrified for his own job. The moment the crisis was averted, the cycle of disrespect would inevitably begin again. I picked up my phone and opened my text messages. I created a new message and typed in Jamal's personal cell phone number. I did not write a long, gloating paragraph. I did not mention Ashley Malik or the blatant disrespect of the quarterly review. I did not demand an apology or acknowledge his desperate offers of double salaries and new titles. I maintained the exact same cold, flawless professionalism I had exercised every single day I worked for his firm. I placed my fingers on the digital keyboard and typed 2 precise, devastating sentences. "I am no longer an employee of your firm. Please refer all technical issues and server outages to your new Vice President of Systems Operations." I read the text over once to ensure there were no typos. The grammar was perfect. The tone was absolute zero. I pressed the blue send arrow. The message bubble popped onto the screen, transitioning from sending to delivered. I watched the screen for exactly 10 seconds. Almost immediately, the small gray typing indicator appeared at the bottom of the chat, as Jamal frantically scrambled to reply. I did not wait to read whatever desperate, panicked paragraph he was trying to formulate. I did not care. I navigated to the contact settings on his profile. I pressed block caller. I did the exact same thing for Malik Ashley and the Corporate Human Resources Department. I set my phone face down on the wooden desk. The digital purge was finally complete. They were entirely on their own, locked inside a burning building, with a leader who did not even know how to use the fire extinguisher. I stood up, grabbed my overnight bag, and walked out of the hotel suite. It was time to drive back to the city. I had a very important, very lucrative meeting to prepare for, and it had absolutely nothing to do with Jamal. The drive back down from the serene elevation of the Blue Ridge Mountains into the sprawling, congested heart of Atlanta was remarkably peaceful. I navigated the heavy afternoon traffic with a light grip on the steering wheel, my mind completely clear of the heavy corporate anxiety that used to define my Sundays. I felt entirely restored. I turned onto my quiet, tree-lined suburban street, ready to unpack my bags, water my plants, and prepare for whatever independent opportunities awaited me. But the tranquil illusion of my homecoming shattered the exact moment my house came into view. There were two vehicles parked aggressively in my driveway, blocking my access to the garage completely. I recognized Malik's sleek black luxury SUV immediately. Parked at a haphazard, desperate angle right behind it was Jamal's silver corporate sedan. They had tracked me down. When they realized they were blocked digitally, they resorted to a physical ambush at my personal residence. I put my car in park on the street, leaving the engine running for a brief moment as I took a slow, steady breath. I was not afraid. I was merely annoyed that they had the audacity to bring their professional incompetence to my front door. I turned off the ignition, slung my overnight bag over my shoulder, and walked calmly up the concrete path toward my property. Jamal and Malik were standing on my front porch. The contrast between the two men was stark, yet they were united by the exact same palpable aura of absolute desperation. Jamal looked like he had aged a full decade in the last 72 hours. His expensive custom-tailored suit was deeply wrinkled. His silk tie was pulled loose around his collar, and he was sweating profusely despite the mild afternoon weather. I was pacing back and forth across the wooden planks of my porch, like a trapped animal running his hands over his face. Malik stood near the front door, his posture rigid, his face twisted into a complex mixture of exhausted anger and deep humiliation. They spotted me walking up the driveway, and Jamal practically sprinted down the porch steps to intercept me. He abandoned every single ounce of his polished, arrogant corporate decorum. "Kendra, where have you been?" Jamal shouted, his voice cracking with panic. "We have been trying to reach you for days. You completely blocked our numbers. Do you have your laptop in that bag? We need to get you connected to the mainframe right now. Mr. Sterling is giving us until the end of the business day to restore the client portal before he terminates the contract and takes his data elsewhere. You need to fix this." I stopped walking, planting my feet firmly on the pavement, maintaining a comfortable physical distance from his frantic energy. I looked at Jamal's panicked face and felt absolutely nothing. I did not drop my bag. I did not reach for my house keys. I looked at him with the same neutral, unbothered expression I used when declining unsolicited sales pitches. "I am not an employee of your firm, Jamal," I said, keeping my voice incredibly clear and measured. "I submitted my formal resignation on Friday. I do not provide freelance technical support on my front lawn, and I certainly do not respond well to being ambushed at my private residence." Jamal ran a trembling hand through his hair, his eyes wide and desperate. "Kendra, please stop playing games. The entire network is burning down." Ashley accidentally triggered a recursive loop, trying to force the system to compile the morning reports. "The servers are completely locked. I will pay you a consulting fee. I will pay you triple your hourly rate just to open your computer and type the bypass commands. Just name your price." Before I could respond to Jamal's pathetic bargaining, Malik stepped off the porch and positioned himself directly between us. He attempted to deploy the older brother authority that worked so well when we were teenagers, puffing out his chest and using a low warning tone designed to intimidate me into submission. "Kendra, enough is enough," Malik said, pointing a firm finger at me. "You made your point. You showed everyone how smart you are and how much the company desperately needs you. We get it. You are a genius. But Ashley is currently sitting in a human resources conference room, crying her eyes out, because the senior executives are blaming her for this entire outage. Her job is quite literally on the line right now." I stared at my brother, marveling at the sheer, unadulterated entitlement radiating from him. He was still trying to gaslight me into taking the blame for his wife's failures. "If she is the vice president of systems operations, then she is the one responsible for the system outage," I replied smoothly. "That is how corporate leadership works, Malik. You take the massive salary, you take the accountability. If she gets fired, we lose half of our household income." Malik snapped back, his voice rising with defensive anger. "You are my sister. You are supposed to protect this family, not tear it apart over some petty professional jealousy, because you did not get a title you wanted. Open your bag, take out your computer, and help my wife do her job. Do not ruin our lives just to stroke your own ego." "Petty professional jealousy," I repeated, letting the words hang in the heavy afternoon air. "Malik, your wife handed me a $50 coffee shop gift card, and ordered me to surrender my weekend to teach her how to do a job she was entirely unqualified to accept. She publicly humiliated me at a dinner table using the salary she stole from my hard work. You sat there and watched her do it. You told me to swallow my pride and support her. So that is exactly what I did. I stepped aside and gave her the full, unrestricted opportunity to lead the department. Jamal stepped around Malik, his desperation overriding my brother's attempt at family discipline. Kendra, forget about the dinner. Forget about the gift card. I was wrong, okay? I made a massive error in judgment regarding the promotion metrics. I admit it. But Mr. Sterling does not care about our internal department politics. He cares about his data. If we do not restore his access by 5 o'clock, he is pulling a contract that accounts for 40% of our annual revenue. I will be fired. Hundreds of people could lose their jobs. You have to be the bigger person here. I am being the bigger person. I said, my voice completely devoid of sympathy. I am allowing the leadership team to navigate their own crisis. You told me leadership was about cultural fit and projecting the right energy. I suggest you tell Ashley to go into the server room and project some vibrant energy at the mainframe. Maybe if she smiles at the corrupted database, it will magically compile the reports. Malik took a step toward me, his hands balled into tight fists at his sides. This is not a joke, Kendra. Ashley is terrified. She does not know what to do. You wrote those background scripts. You know exactly how to link them back to the network. It would take you 5 minutes to fix this. 5 minutes to save my wife's career and my family's financial security. Are you really going to stand there and watch us lose everything because you want to prove a point? I looked at the two men blocking my path. One was a manager who valued bubbly personalities over technical brilliance, currently begging the workhorse he had insulted to save his career. The other was a brother who happily watched me get disrespected, only to demand my unpaid labor the second his own luxurious lifestyle was threatened. They both expected me to instantly fold under the pressure of their demands. They expected the reliable, quiet African-American woman to sacrifice her boundaries, her peace, and her self-respect to clean up a massive mess created entirely by a white woman's incompetence and their own enabling behavior. I tightened my grip on the strap of my overnight bag. I did not reach for my laptop. I did not move toward my front door. I simply stood my ground, staring them down with cold, unwavering resolve. I was not going to be manipulated by familial guilt, and I was certainly not going to be bullied by a desperate middle manager. They had built this fragile digital house of cards, handing the keys to a woman who did not even know how to open the door, and now they were going to stand right in the middle of the driveway and watch the entire structure collapse. When my absolute silence makes it completely clear that I am not going to yield, the fragile facade of Jamal's desperation shatters entirely. The panic in his eyes hardens into something sharp, vicious, and deeply familiar. It is the exact same corporate hostility he uses to bully vendors and intimidate junior analysts. He realizes that begging the workhorse has failed, so he instantly pivots to using the whip. You think you are so smart, Jamal snarls, taking a heavy, aggressive step toward me. You think you can just walk away and hold a multi-million-dollar company hostage. I am not asking you anymore, Kendra. I am telling you. You are going to fix this right now, or I am calling the corporate legal team. I will have them draft a lawsuit so fast your head will spin. We will sue you for breach of contract, gross negligence, and malicious destruction of company property. Malik immediately flanks him, nodding in agreement, emboldened by Jamal's sudden burst of authority. You are playing with fire, Kendra, my brother warns, his voice loud and echoing off the brick facade of my house. You do not mess with a corporation like this. They have lawyers on retainer who will bury you in litigation for the next 10 years. You are going to lose this house. You are going to lose all your savings. You are going to end up in a jail cell for corporate sabotage. Is proving a point worth ruining your entire life? I do not flinch. I do not step back. I do not let my breathing accelerate or my pulse quicken. They want me to panic. They want to trigger the deep systemic fear that comes when a black woman is suddenly threatened with police lawsuits and the crushing weight of the legal system. They are trying to bait me into an emotional reaction so they can label me hostile, erratic, and unstable. But I have spent the last 5 years anticipating exactly this kind of betrayal. I am not reacting to their threats because I have already neutralized them. I am not ruining my life, Malik. I say, my voice dropping to a low, incredibly calm register that slices directly through their shouting. I am simply enjoying my Tuesday afternoon. I slide my hand into the front pocket of my overnight bag. I do not rush. I retrieve a crisp, thick manila folder and pull out a single packet of stapled paper. It is a certified photocopy of my original employment agreement, the exact document I signed 5 years ago when I first accepted the senior data architect position. I have kept a hard copy of this document in my home office safe for half a decade. I extend my arm and offer the packet to Jamal. He stares at it for a second, his chest heaving before snatching it out of my hand. Malik leans in close over his shoulder, his brow furrowed in confusion. Turn to page 4, I instruct smoothly. Look at section 7, paragraph 3. I highlighted it in bright yellow so you would not have to strain your eyes. Jamal flips roughly through the pages. His eyes scan the document, finding the neon yellow block of text. I watch his eyes dart back and forth across the legal jargon. I have memorized the exact phrasing. I know exactly what he is reading. Read it out loud, Jamal, I command, injecting a sharp note of undeniable authority into my voice. Jamal remains completely silent. The aggressive posture begins to drain out of his shoulders. His jaw clenches so tightly I can see the muscle jumping under his skin. Since you are struggling, I will recite it for you. I continue, taking a slow, deliberate step forward, so I am standing firmly in my own driveway, commanding my own space. Intellectual property. Any software, scripts, applications, or digital tools developed exclusively on an employee's personal hardware outside of designated corporate working hours and without direct financial compensation or explicit directive from the firm, remain the sole and exclusive intellectual property of the employee. The company claims no ownership over external innovations. Malik looks from the paper to my face, totally bewildered. What does that mean? He asks, his voice losing its intimidating edge. It means I did not hack the system. Malik, I explain, speaking slowly and clearly, so my brother can fully comprehend the reality of his wife's situation. I did not introduce a virus. I did not delete a single byte of client data. I did not commit corporate sabotage. Every single piece of code that was managing the server load fixing, Ashley's constant data entry errors, and formatting those beautiful executive reports was written by me on my personal laptop on a Sunday night. In my own living room. I own that code. It is my private property. Jamal shakes his head, clutching the paper tightly. You deployed it on company servers, he argues, his voice thin and reedy. You used it for company business. That makes it company property. I smile, a cold, clinical expression. Wrong again, Jamal. I created an external application programming interface. I built a digital bridge from my secure private server to your corporate database. I gave your firm a verbal at-will license to use my bridge for free because I was tired of staying up until 3 a.m. fixing the mistakes your team kept making. My free license expired on Friday night when you handed my promotion to a woman who does not even know what an API is. All I did before I walked out the door was revoke my access tokens. I unlinked my property from your network. I gesture toward his silver sedan parked in my driveway. It is the equivalent of me driving my personal car to work for 5 years, giving everyone free rides, and then deciding to take my keys and go home. You cannot sue me for stealing a car that belongs to me. You cannot send me to jail because you suddenly have to walk. Malik stares at me, the color slowly draining from his face as the absolute ironclad legality of my position finally clicks into place in his brain. You left them with nothing, he whispers, the realization dawning on him. I left them with exactly what they own, I correct him sharply. I left them with their raw database. I left them with their outdated infrastructure. And most importantly, I left them with their brilliant, bubbly new vice president of systems operations. If Ashley managed to trigger a recursive loop today that locked the entire mainframe, that is not corporate sabotage on my part. That is sheer, unadulterated incompetence on hers. You cannot sue an ex-employee because your current leadership does not know how to run a basic SQL query without crashing the system. Jamal lowers the stapled contract. His hands are physically shaking. The threat of lawyers and police has completely vanished, replaced by the crushing, undeniable reality of his own catastrophic mismanagement. He knows I am right. He knows that if he goes to the corporate legal team and demands they sue me, the lawyers will look at the server logs, look at my contract, and immediately ask Jamal why he allowed the company's most vital operations to run exclusively on an undocumented, uncompensated background script owned by a single employee. Exposing my actions would require exposing his own monumental failure as a director of operations. He would be handing the executive board the exact ammunition they need to fire him for gross negligence. I did not break anything, Jamal, I say, my voice dropping to a quiet, definitive whisper. I just stopped carrying your department on my back. I stopped being the invisible workhorse. Now you get to see exactly what your department looks like without me holding it together. Jamal looks at me, his eyes wide and hollow. The silence between us is thick and heavy. He has absolutely no leverage left. He cannot bully me. He cannot sue me. He cannot force me to save him. He is entirely out of options. The heavy, suffocating silence stretches out across my driveway. Jamal stands completely frozen, staring down at the highlighted lines of my employment contract, as if the yellow ink might magically rearrange itself into a different sentence. His expensive leather shoes are planted firmly on my concrete, but his entire corporate foundation has just crumbled beneath him. Malik looks exactly like a man who has just watched a winning lottery ticket blow out of his hands and into a storm drain. He shifts his weight from one foot to the other, opening his mouth to speak, then closing it again. There is absolutely no familial authority left for him to leverage. The truth is laid bare in the bright afternoon sun. They cannot bully me into saving them. The profound quiet is suddenly shattered by a sharp, blaring electronic ringtone. The sound erupts from the breast pocket of Jamal's wrinkled suit jacket. The sudden noise makes both men jump. Jamal scrambles frantically, his shaking fingers diving into his pocket to retrieve the device. He pulls the phone out and stares at the caller identification flashing across the bright screen. I watch the last remaining drops of blood completely drain from his face, leaving his complexion a sickly ashen gray. He swallows hard, his Adam's apple bobbing visibly in his throat. It is Marcus Sterling, Jamal whispers, his voice barely audible over the distant hum of suburban traffic. He is calling me directly. Jamal looks at me with wide, terrified eyes. He is silently begging me to give him a script, a lifeline, a single technical phrase he can use to placate the most powerful client in the firm's portfolio. I give him absolutely nothing. I keep my expression perfectly neutral, waiting for him to face his own executioner. Jamal swipes his thumb across the screen to answer the call. In his sheer, unadulterated panic, his trembling thumb misses the earpiece icon and accidentally hits the speakerphone button. The audio connects immediately, broadcasting the call loudly and clearly across my entire driveway. Jamal, a voice booms from the small device. It is deep, authoritative, and currently vibrating with a level of barely contained rage that makes my brother take a physical step backward. Mr. Sterling is a notoriously demanding chief executive officer. He does not tolerate inefficiency, and he certainly does not tolerate failure. Mr. Sterling, Jamal stammers, his voice pitching an octave higher than usual. Sir, I am so incredibly sorry for the delay today. We are currently experiencing a minor network disruption, but I assure you, my team is working around the clock to implement a solution. Do not dare insult my intelligence by calling this a minor network disruption. Jamal, Mr. Sterling barks, his voice cutting through the speaker like a serrated blade. I have my own internal data analysts reviewing the server logs your firm just transmitted to us. I do not want your polished corporate spin. I want to know exactly what your new vice president of systems operations just did to my production environment. Jamal looks like he might actually vomit. He clutches the phone with both hands. Sir Ashley is simply navigating a very complex transition protocol today. I promise you we are resolving the dashboard timeout as we speak. She did not resolve a dashboard timeout. Mr. Sterling roars, the anger fully breaking through his professional restraint. 10 minutes ago, my entire executive dashboard went completely black. My lead database engineer just informed me that your brilliant new vice president bypassed the standard security protocols in a desperate attempt to force the morning reports to compile. She pushed a raw, untested manual override patch directly to the production server. I stand perfectly still, absorbing the sheer magnitude of Ashley's catastrophic blunder. She did not just fail to run the system. In her frantic, breathless panic to look like she was doing something, she tried to manually force a data pull without understanding the foundational architecture. She pushed an untested patch. Jamal echoes his voice, dropping to a horrified whisper. Sir, the fail-safes should have prevented any raw code from executing. There are no fail-safes functioning on your network right now, Mr. Sterling snaps back. My engineers can see the gaps in your infrastructure from our end. Whatever patch she injected bypassed the read-only permissions. She executed a recursive drop table command across the entire storage array. Jamal, she did not just freeze the portal, she completely wiped our entire quarterly database. The absolute finality of those words echoes off the brick walls of my house. I watch my brother Malik physically stagger backwards. He grabs the side of Jamal's silver sedan to steady himself. Malik works in corporate law. He understands exactly what those words mean. He understands the financial liability, the breach of contract, and the immediate devastating consequences. His wife did not just make a mistake, she committed a multi-million-dollar digital massacre. Sir, please, Jamal begs, practically shouting into the speaker. We have backup servers. We can restore the data. I will personally oversee the data restoration process right now. Just give us a few hours to pull the weekend cache. You do not have a weekend cache, Mr. Sterling replies, his tone turning dangerously cold and precise. Your automated backup routing failed on Saturday afternoon at exactly 2 o'clock. There is absolutely nothing in your secondary storage folders. Every single piece of quarterly performance data, every client metric, every financial projection my firm has compiled over the last 3 months is gone. Erased. Vaporized by a woman who apparently does not know the difference between a query script and a formatting command. Jamal is completely silent. He is hyperventilating, his chest heaving under his ruined suit. He looks at me, his eyes pleading for me to contradict the CEO, begging me to tell him there is a secret hidden backup file tucked away on a local drive. I offer him a slow, deliberate blink. There is no backup. When I unlinked my proprietary API bridge on Friday night, the automated backup script went with it. The system choked on Saturday just as I knew it would. I am giving your firm until the end of the business day to produce a miraculous solution, Jamal, Mr. Sterling, says, delivering the final fatal blow. If my data is not fully restored by 5 o'clock, I am terminating our contract effective immediately. I will be instructing my legal team to file a massive lawsuit for gross negligence and breach of fiduciary duty. I strongly suggest you find whoever actually built your infrastructure and get them on the phone. The line goes dead with a sharp electronic click. The dial tone hums steadily from the speaker before the screen fades to black. Jamal slowly lowers the phone. His hand drops to his side. He looks utterly hollow, entirely devoid of the arrogant, bustling energy that defined him just 5 days ago. He has lost his largest client, he is facing a monumental corporate lawsuit, and his career is effectively over. Malik is staring into space, his mouth slightly open. The reality of his wife's sheer incompetence has finally shattered his carefully constructed suburban illusion. Ashley is going to be fired today. There will be no massive bonus. There will be no corporate expense account. The luxury SUV parked in my driveway is going to become a severe financial liability. I reach down and pick up the handle of my overnight bag. I slide it smoothly onto my shoulder. I do not gloat. I do not laugh in their faces. True power does not require theatrical displays of victory. It sounds like you have a tremendous amount of vibrant, enthusiastic leadership to project before 5 o'clock, Jamal. I say, my voice crisp, polite, and completely detached. I strongly suggest you head back to the office. Your vice president is going to need a lot of your fatherly guidance today. I turn my gaze to my brother. Check on your wife, Malik. She is going to have a very difficult afternoon packing up her desk. I do not wait for either of them to respond. I turn my back on the 2 ruined men standing in my driveway. I walk up the short flight of concrete steps, cross my porch, and slide my house key into the front door lock. I step inside my quiet, peaceful house and push the heavy oak door shut behind me. The deadbolt slides into place with a firm, deeply satisfying click, permanently locking out the chaos they created. I lean back against the heavy oak front door of my house, letting the cool, solid wood support my weight. The deadbolt is securely engaged. Outside, I can faintly hear the muffled sound of two-car engines finally starting, followed by the crunch of tires backing out of my driveway. Jamal and my brother are leaving. They are driving back into the city to face a corporate firing squad completely unarmed. Inside my home, the silence is beautiful, rich, and deeply restorative. I drop my overnight bag onto the entryway bench and slip off my shoes, letting my bare feet press against the warm hardwood floor. I walk into my kitchen, pour myself a tall glass of sparkling water, and take a long, slow drink. I have never felt more grounded in my entire life. I carry my glass into the living room and sit down on my velvet sofa. I am fully prepared to spend the rest of the afternoon reading a book and ignoring the outside world. But exactly 47 minutes after I locked my front door, my personal smartphone vibrates on the coffee table. It does not ring with the frantic, aggressive cadence of an automated corporate alert. It is a steady, rhythmic pulse. I pick up the device and look at the screen. The caller identification displays an unknown number with a downtown Atlanta area code. I rarely answer unknown numbers, but a very specific, sharp intuition tells me exactly who is on the other end of this line. Jamal and Malik are blocked. Human resources cannot reach me. There is only one person involved in this catastrophic mess, who possesses the resources, the intelligence, and the sheer determination to bypass the middleman and track down my personal contact information. I swipe the screen and press the phone to my ear. I keep my voice calm, professional, and entirely unbothered. "Hello, this is Kendra." Kendra, a deep, resonant voice replies. The tone is commanding, layered with the undeniable authority of a man who is accustomed to running a massive enterprise. "My name is Elias Sterling. I believe you are highly familiar with my company." I smile, taking a slow sip of my sparkling water. "Mr. Sterling, it is an absolute pleasure to speak with you directly. I am intimately familiar with your data infrastructure. How can I help you this afternoon?" I hear a low, rumbling chuckle on the other end of the line. It is not the sound of a man who is currently panicking about a deleted database. It is the sound of a highly successful, self-made African-American businessman who has just confirmed a very strong suspicion. Mr. Sterling built his logistics and analytics empire from the ground up. He knows exactly how corporate dynamics operate, and he knows how to spot a lie. "I just concluded a profoundly disappointing phone call with your former director of operations, Jamal." Mr. Sterling says, his voice settling into a serious, measured cadence. He attempted to feed me a highly fabricated, frantic narrative about a sudden server malfunction. When I pressed him on the fact that my engineers isolated the catastrophic failure to a manual recursive drop table command executed by his new vice president, he changed his story. He tried to tell me that a disgruntled, rogue former employee had sabotaged the network on her way out the door. He tried to blame you, Kendra. I do not gasp. I do not act shocked. I expect nothing less from a coward who refuses to take accountability for his own department. Jamal is projecting his own monumental failures onto the easiest target he can find. I reply smoothly. I assure you, Mr. Sterling, I did not sabotage a single piece of corporate hardware. I simply submitted my resignation on Friday night and took my personal property with me. Mr. Sterling hums thoughtfully. I told Jamal I did not buy his story for a single second. I have been in this industry for 3 decades, Kendra. I know exactly what it looks like when a brilliantly competent black woman is systematically pushed into the background, so an aggressively mediocre favorite can stand in the spotlight. I reviewed the implementation logs from when my firm first contracted with your agency 5 years ago. Your name was on every single piece of foundational architecture. You built the custom bridges. You designed the throttling protocols. I noticed your name completely disappeared from the executive reports about 8 months ago, right around the time the new hire showed up. When my entire database mysteriously vaporized today, I did not need a private investigator to tell me that the load-bearing pillar of that department had just walked out the building. I feel a profound sense of validation washing over me. For 5 years, I worked in the shadows for a manager who told me I lacked the cultural fit to lead. Now the chief executive officer of a multi-million-dollar enterprise is personally calling my cell phone to acknowledge my brilliance. You are incredibly perceptive, Mr. Sterling, I say. The architecture holding your data environment together was a proprietary suite of API scripts I coded on my own personal equipment. The company never compensated me for that innovation. When they chose to promote someone who routinely requires assistance to reset her own passwords, I chose to revoke my free software license. The system they are trying to run right now is completely unprotected. There is a brief silence on the line. When Mr. Sterling speaks again, his tone is sharp, focused, and entirely business-oriented. Kendra, I am a pragmatic man. I do not care about Jamal's bruised ego, and I certainly do not care about his firm's internal staffing drama. I care about my data. My lead engineer informed me that the new vice president managed to permanently wipe our quarterly storage array. Jamal claims it is entirely unrecoverable. I need you to be completely honest with me right now. Is my data gone? I lean back against the velvet cushions of my sofa. I look out my living room window at the bright afternoon sun filtering through the trees. I am a professional, Mr. Sterling. I have immense respect for the empire you have built, and I would never allow a prominent black-owned business to become collateral damage in Jamal's theater of incompetence. I pause for a fraction of a second, letting the weight of my words settle. Your data is perfectly I continue. Exactly 10 minutes before I formally resigned and severed my API bridge on Friday night, I executed an isolated, fully encrypted shadow backup of your entire quarterly database. I routed that backup to a secure air-gapped server that I personally own and maintain. I knew exactly who was taking over my department on Monday morning. I knew it was only a matter of time before she panicked and destroyed the production environment. Your data is not vaporized. It is simply sitting in my private vault, completely inaccessible to Jamal and his entire team. Mr. Sterling lets out a sharp, genuine laugh. It is a booming sound filled with absolute respect and sheer unadulterated admiration. Kendra, you are a remarkably dangerous woman to cross. You let them walk right into their own execution, and you held on to the only key that can unlock the door. I protect the assets I build, I reply simply. Jamal and his firm no longer have access to my protection. I do not want you to fix Jamal's problem. Mr. Sterling says, his voice dropping into a decisive, authoritative register. I have zero intention of maintaining a contract with an agency that prioritizes social pleasantries over data security. I am pulling my account from their firm by the end of the business day. But I need my infrastructure operational, and I refuse to hand my transition over to a team of panicked amateurs. He clears his throat. I am hosting a private lunch in 1 hour at the Capitol Grill in Buckhead. I want you to meet me there. We are going to sit down, look at a menu, and discuss your immediate future as an independent entity. I want to talk about what it will cost to have you personally oversee my firm's entire data migration and take over my analytics architecture as an autonomous consultant. I look at the wall clock in my kitchen. It is 1:15 in the afternoon. Jamal is currently sweating through his ruined suit in a corporate office, desperately trying to salvage a sinking ship. Meanwhile, I am sitting in my comfortable home receiving a direct invitation to cut out the middleman entirely. I will be there in 45 minutes, Mr. Sterling, I say. Excellent, he replies. Ask the host to direct you to my private table. I look forward to doing business with the woman who actually runs the show. The call ends with a crisp click. I lower the phone and look at the blank screen. The shift in the power dynamic is absolute and irreversible. I stand up from the sofa, my energy completely renewed. I walk into my bedroom and open my closet. I bypass the muted background colors I used to wear to the office to blend in. I reach for a flawlessly tailored deep emerald green power suit. I select a crisp silk blouse and my sharpest pair of black stiletto heels. I take my time applying my makeup, ensuring my appearance reflects exactly what I am. A brilliant independent powerhouse who holds all the leverage. I grab my leather briefcase, slide my encrypted hard drive inside, and walk out the door to claim my empire. The drive to Buckhead takes exactly 30 minutes. I pull my sedan into the circular driveway of the Capitol Grill, place my vehicle in park, and hand my keys to the waiting valet. I do not rush. I adjust the lapels of my emerald green suit, grip the handle of my leather briefcase, and walk through the heavy mahogany doors with the absolute unshakable confidence of a woman who completely owns her reality. The restaurant interior is a masterclass in understated wealth. Dark wood paneling, dim ambient lighting, and the low sophisticated murmur of high-powered business deals being struck over expensive cuts of meat. I approach the host stand. Before I can even state my name, the host notices my demeanor and stands a little straighter. "I am here to see Elias Sterling," I say, my voice smooth and commanding. The host nods immediately, his polite customer service smile shifting into an expression of extreme deference. "Right this way, Mom. Mr. Sterling is expecting you." I follow the host through the crowded dining room. We bypass the main seating area, entirely navigating toward a secluded semi-private alcove in the back of the restaurant designed exclusively for high-level VIP clients. Sitting at a spacious leather booth is Elias Sterling. He is a striking, distinguished man in his late 50s wearing a flawless charcoal suit. The silver at his temples and the sharp, calculating intelligence in his dark eyes project an aura of total authority. He is a man who built a logistics empire from scratch, navigating a corporate world that was never designed for him to succeed. He recognizes competence because he had to forge his own out of pure necessity. As I approach the table, Mr. Sterling stands up. It is a gesture of profound, genuine respect. He does not view me as a subordinate, a disgruntled worker, or a background employee. He views me as an equal. "Kendra," he says, extending a large, steady hand. "It is an absolute privilege to finally meet the architect face to face. You look exactly like a woman who knows she holds all the winning cards." "The privilege is entirely mine, Mr. Sterling," I reply, accepting his firm handshake. I take my seat in the curved leather booth, placing my briefcase gently on the seat beside me. A waiter appears, instantly pouring sparkling water into our crystal glasses and silently retreating to ensure our privacy. Mr. Sterling does not bother with trivial small talk or superficial pleasantries. He rests his forearms on the crisp white tablecloth, leans forward, and fixes me with a piercing, analytical gaze. "I want to tell you exactly what your former director of operations said to me 45 minutes ago," Mr. Sterling begins, his voice dropping to a low, serious register. "When I informed Jamal that I was fully aware his new vice president had wiped my database, he panicked. He realized he could not protect her incompetence anymore, so he decided to completely rewrite reality." I take a slow sip of my sparkling water. I maintain a perfectly neutral expression. "And what narrative did Jamal attempt to construct?" Mr. Sterling lets out a sharp, derisive scoff. "He told me that you were a deeply unstable, jealous former employee. He claimed that because you were passed over for a promotion, you went completely rogue. He spun a frantic, breathless lie that you hacked into the mainframe on your way out the door, deployed a malicious virus, and deliberately wiped my quarterly database just to ruin your sister-in-law's first day on the job. He actually used the phrase cyber-terrorism, Kendra. He tried to tell me he was filing a police report against you." The sheer, unadulterated audacity of Jamal's lie hangs in the quiet air of the alcove. I was so terrified of losing his multi-million-dollar client and exposing his own catastrophic mismanagement that he was entirely willing to frame a black woman for a federal crime. He was willing to destroy my life, my freedom, and my professional reputation just to cover up the fact that he promoted a highly unqualified white woman who clicked the wrong button. I do not raise my voice. I do not show anger. I simply smile, a cold, clinical expression. "And how did you respond to his desperate fiction, Mr. Sterling?" I laughed in his face, Mr. Sterling says, his dark eyes flashing with fierce, protective indignation. "I told him he was a coward and a fool. My company does not operate blindly, Kendra. When my portal went dark this morning, I did not just look at the crash. I had my lead engineers run a full diagnostic on the server history dating back 5 years. He leans back in the leather booth, swirling the ice in his water glass. My engineers saw the entire digital landscape. They saw the seamless proprietary API bridge that vanished from the network on Friday night. They saw your digital signature on every single patch, every background fix, and every automated report that has kept my account running flawlessly since we signed the contract. And more importantly, they saw the origin of the fatal command executed this morning. They saw the exact terminal where the raw, untested drop table override was pushed. It was not a remote hack. It came directly from the Vice President's administrative dashboard. I feel a profound, deeply satisfying warmth spreading through my chest. For 5 years, I was forced to be a ghost. I was gaslit by my manager, and my own brother told that my brilliant, flawless work was simply basic grunt labor. Now an industry titan is sitting across from me validating every single ounce of my worth. I know exactly who built my infrastructure. Mr. Sterling continues, his voice ringing with absolute certainty. I know who maintained it while a department full of amateurs slept soundly. And I know exactly what it looks like when a desperate middle manager tries to cover his tracks after promoting a severely underqualified candidate over the brilliant, dedicated black woman who actually does the heavy lifting. I have seen that exact scenario play out 100 times in corporate America. I do not tolerate it in my own house, and I certainly do not finance it with my company's money. I lower my glass to the table. I appreciate your thorough due diligence, Mr. Sterling. Jamal fundamentally misunderstood the technology, but more importantly, he misunderstood my boundaries. He assumed I would tolerate the disrespect because I had been a quiet, reliable employee. He assumed I would quietly log in this weekend, fix the catastrophic errors, and let his new vice president take the credit. He was severely mistaken. You handled the situation flawlessly, Mr. Sterling says, nodding his head in profound approval. You did not break a single protocol. You simply allowed them to experience the unshielded reality of their own decisions. You let them walk right into their own execution. That requires an incredible amount of discipline and strategic foresight. Those are the exact qualities I require for my executive team. The waiter returns to our table, discreetly placing 2 menus before us. The atmosphere shifts from a post-mortem of Jamal's spectacular downfall to the sharp, focused energy of a high-stakes business negotiation. We are 2 powerhouse professionals, and it is time to discuss the future. I do not do business with fools, Kendra. Mr. Sterling says, setting his menu aside without looking at it. I am terminating my contract with Jamal's firm by the end of the business day. They have breached their fiduciary duty, and my legal team is currently drafting the severance documentation. But I need my infrastructure operational. I need my quarterly data recovered from your secure vault, and I need a permanent bulletproof architecture built from the ground up. He folds his hands together on the table. I do not want to hire you as an employee. I want to hire your consulting firm. I want you to step in as my independent chief data consultant. You will have full autonomy over my entire analytics division. You will build your own team, design your own parameters, and name your own price. I want to know exactly what it will cost to have you seamlessly extract my assets from their burning building and bring them safely into yours. I look at the wealthy, brilliant man sitting across from me. He is offering me the exact empire I have spent the last 5 years quietly building for someone else. I do not hesitate. I do not ask for time to think it over or feign humble surprise. I do not play the conditioned role of the grateful subordinate. I look him straight in the eye and I name my price. I ask for an annual consulting retainer that exactly triples the salary Jamal had been paying me. I request full funding to hire 2 junior developers of my own choosing. I demand absolute unrestricted autonomy over the architectural design of his new database environment. Mr. Sterling does not blink. He does not try to negotiate the figure down. He does not ask me to justify my worth. He simply nods his head. Done, Mr. Sterling says, his voice carrying the firm, decisive weight of a man who knows a bargain when he sees one. My legal team will have the independent contractor agreement drafted and sent to your personal email within the hour. We will wire the initial transition fee by the end of the day. Now, how quickly can you restore my quarterly data and get my executives back online? I reach into my leather briefcase and pull out the encrypted hard drive. I place it gently on the crisp white tablecloth. Your data is right here, Mr. Sterling. I can have your executive portal fully functional and running on my secure private servers within 2 hours. You will not lose a single metric. He reaches out and taps his fingers lightly against the hard drive. A wide, deeply satisfied smile spreads across his face. You are a lifesaver, Kendra. I will notify my operations team to prepare for the migration immediately. I keep my hand resting firmly on top of the drive. Not just yet, I say, my voice dropping into a serious, uncompromising register. I am more than happy to accept your generous offer, Mr. Sterling. But I have one strict non-negotiable condition before we execute this transition. He leans back against the leather booth, raising an inquisitive eyebrow. Name it. I will not be a ghost in this transition, I explained smoothly. I will not allow Jamal to spend the next 6 months telling the corporate ecosystem that he fired a rogue employee who subsequently poached his biggest client. I will not allow him to control the narrative or hide his catastrophic mismanagement from his own executive board. I require a completely clean, publicly documented legal break. I pause for a fraction of a second, letting the gravity of my conditions sink in. I want you to call an emergency audit meeting with Jamal's firm for tomorrow morning. I want Jamal there. I want his new vice president of systems operations there. And most importantly, I want the senior managing partners of his firm in the room. You are going to tell them you are terminating the contract due to their catastrophic data breach. You are going to formally introduce your new chief data consultant, who will be overseeing the extraction of your assets. And I get to walk into that boardroom right beside you. Mr. Sterling stares at me. For a long, quiet moment, the only sound is the ambient hum of the upscale restaurant and the clinking of silverware from nearby tables. Then he lets out a deep, booming laugh that turns the heads of a few wealthy diners. He slaps his hand flat against the mahogany table. Kendra, he says, shaking his head in sheer, unadulterated admiration. You do not just want to beat them. You want them to sign the surrender treaty in front of their own generals. I want absolute accountability. I correct him calmly. I want them to look me in the eye and legally hand over the assets they failed to protect. It is the only way to guarantee they can never threaten me with litigation or try to sabotage my new consulting firm. I need the senior partners to see exactly what Jamal's cultural fit cost their bottom line. Mr. Sterling pulls his smartphone from his breast pocket. I love the way you do business, he says, his thumb moving rapidly across the screen. I am sending an email to Jamal and his managing partners right now. I am demanding an in-person emergency review at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. I will tell them my legal counsel has advised a formal audit of the database wipe before we discuss the terms of our contract termination. They will be sweating bullets all night, and they will mandate that absolutely everyone is in that room to try and save the account. We spend the rest of our lunch discussing the technical parameters of my new role. I outline the advanced security protocols I plan to implement, the modernized data pipelines I will build from scratch, and the reporting structures that will give him unprecedented visibility into his logistics empire. Mr. Sterling listens with sharp, focused intent. He treats my expertise with the profound respect it deserves. We are two African American professionals who understand exactly how hard we had to work to claim our space in this industry. We speak the same language of excellence. By the time the waiter clears our plates and brings the final bill, my professional future is permanently secured. I am no longer an invisible, underpaid workhorse, carrying the weight of an incompetent department. I am the founder and chief data consultant of my own independent agency, and I have just secured the most lucrative client in the city as my foundational account. Mr. Sterling pays the bill, stands up from the leather booth, and buttons his suit jacket. He looks down at me with a fierce, approving smile. I will see you in the lobby of their building at 8:45 tomorrow morning, Kendra. Wear your best armor. We have an empire to dismantle. I will be there, Mr. Sterling, I reply, sliding the encrypted hard drive back into my briefcase. I walk out of the restaurant and into the bright Atlanta afternoon. The humid air feels lighter, cleaner, and charged with electric possibility. I get into my car and drive back to my house. I spend the rest of the afternoon setting up my secure private servers, carefully unpacking Mr. Sterling's data from the shadow backup, and building a flawless, impenetrable portal for his executive team. I do not rush. I work with the steady, calm precision of a master architect constructing her own castle. As evening falls, I brew a cup of premium herbal tea and sit by my living room window. My blocked call log shows that Jamal and Malik have attempted to contact me another 40 times between them. They are currently drowning in the terrifying reality of their own incompetence, desperately trying to salvage a database that simply does not exist on their network anymore. They are scrambling to prepare for an emergency audit with a furious CEO, completely unaware of the absolute execution awaiting them in the boardroom tomorrow morning. I take a slow, satisfying sip of my tea. Tomorrow I am going to walk back into the exact same glass-walled room where I was publicly humiliated and robbed of my promotion. But I will not be walking in as a subordinate. I will not be carrying a cardboard box. I will be walking in as the conqueror. I set my teacup down, open my closet, and begin preparing the perfect tailored suit for a corporate funeral. I pull my car into the familiar underground parking garage at exactly 8:30 in the morning. I bypass my old assigned spot in the cramped employee section and pull directly into one of the designated visitor spaces, right by the private elevator bank. I turn off the engine and check my reflection in the rearview mirror. The emerald green tailored suit fits perfectly. My hair is flawless. My expression is completely unreadable. I step out of the car gripping my leather briefcase and walk toward the lobby. Elias Sterling is already waiting near the reception desk. He looks incredibly sharp in a navy blue suit exuding an aura of absolute control. He checks his luxury watch just as I approach. He looks up, takes in my tailored suit and my steady posture, and a slow, approving smile spreads across his face. "You look like a woman who is ready to collect a major debt," Mr. Sterling says, offering his hand. I accept his handshake with a firm grip. "I am ready to collect exactly what is owed, Mr. Sterling." We step into the executive elevator together. The ride to the 14th floor is smooth and silent. We do not need to review our strategy. We both know exactly how this execution is going to play out. When the heavy metal doors slide open, we step out onto the plush carpet of the executive suite. This is the floor where the managing partners reside. This is where Jamal usually comes to claim the credit for my silent labor. Today, it is where he is going to face his permanent downfall. As we walk down the wide hallway toward the primary boardroom, I can feel the nervous energy radiating through the building. Assistants are keeping their heads down. Junior executives are rushing past with tight, anxious faces. Everyone knows the biggest client in the firm's portfolio is threatening to walk, and they know an emergency audit is currently underway. They just have no idea that the auditor is walking right beside the client. We approach the massive frosted glass double doors of the main boardroom. Even through the thick glass, I can hear the frantic, hushed voices inside. I can hear Jamal desperately trying to rehearse his damage control speech. I can hear a woman crying softly. It is Ashley. She is already crumbling under the weight of an expectation she was never qualified to meet. Mr. Sterling does not knock. He reaches out, grabs the heavy steel handles, and pushes the double doors wide open. The atmosphere inside the boardroom is thick with absolute terror. The long, polished mahogany table is surrounded by the highest-ranking executives in the firm. Sitting at the head of the table is Ms. Caldwell, the strict no-nonsense managing partner who oversees all department directors. She looks absolutely furious. Jamal is standing near the presentation screen, his suit jacket off, huge circles of sweat visible under his arms. He looks like a man who has not slept in 3 days. Ashley is sitting next to him, clutching a legal pad to her chest, her face pale and streaked with ruined mascara. Mr. Sterling steps into the room first. The executives immediately stand up, scrambling to offer their polite greetings and apologies. Jamal practically trips over his own feet, rushing forward, his hands extended in a desperate gesture of appeasement. "Mr. Sterling, thank you so much for coming in this morning," Jamal says, his voice shaking with forced enthusiasm. "I assure you, we have our entire engineering team working on the data recovery as we speak. We are going to make this right." I step through the double doors right behind Mr. Sterling. The reaction is instantaneous and incredibly satisfying. The blood completely drains from Jamal's face. He stops walking mid-stride, his mouth falling open in a display of sheer, unadulterated shock. He stares at me, blinking rapidly, trying to process why his former employee is standing in the executive boardroom wearing a custom suit and standing shoulder to shoulder with the chief executive officer he just lied to. Ashley lets out a small, audible gasp. She drops her pen on the table, her eyes darting between me and Jamal in total confusion. She still does not understand the magnitude of what is happening. She probably thinks I felt guilty and came back to help her fix the servers. Ms. Caldwell frowns, looking from Jamal to me. Jamal, who is this woman? She asks sharply. Why is a former employee interrupting a highly sensitive client audit? Before Jamal can even attempt to formulate a coherent sentence, Mr. Sterling raises his hand, demanding absolute silence. He walks over to the executive table and pulls out a chair for himself. He gestures for me to take the seat directly to his right. I sit down smoothly, placing my leather briefcase on the polished wood surface. I fold my hands together and look directly at Jamal. This woman is not interrupting the audit, Ms. Caldwell. Mr. Sterling says, his deep voice commanding the entire room. This woman is the auditor. Jamal grips the edge of the table to steady himself. His eyes are wide, darting desperately between Mr. Sterling and me. Sir, I do not understand. Kendra resigned on Friday. She abandoned the department. She is the reason your database is currently inaccessible. Mr. Sterling lets out a sharp, deeply condescending laugh. He leans forward, fixing Jamal with a look of pure disgust. Do not attempt to lie to me in front of your managing partners, Jamal. You told me yesterday that my data was wiped because of a rogue cyber attack. Now you are trying to claim she abandoned the department. The truth is that my data was wiped because your new vice president of systems operations pushed a manual override patch that destroyed the entire storage array. Ms. Caldwell turns her furious gaze onto Ashley. Ashley shrinks back in her chair, her bottom lip trembling. She looks to Jamal for protection, but Jamal is entirely focused on his own survival. Mr. Sterling continues, his tone absolute and uncompromising. You lost my data because you prioritized social politics over actual competence. You promoted a woman who does not know how to run a basic query, and you marginalized the brilliant data architect who actually built the infrastructure keeping this entire firm afloat. You assumed I would be foolish enough to accept your corporate spin. You were wrong. Mr. Sterling turns slightly, gesturing toward me with a look of profound respect. I did not come here today to beg you to fix my database. I came here to formally introduce my new independent chief data consultant. Kendra has successfully extracted my entire quarterly data environment from your failing network. She currently holds my complete digital infrastructure on a secure encrypted drive in that briefcase. The silence in the boardroom is deafening. Ms. Caldwell stares at me, a mixture of shock and dawning realization crossing her features. She is a smart executive. She understands exactly what has just happened. The firm did not just lose a massive client. They lost the single employee who actually held the keys to the kingdom, and that employee just walked back into the room to watch them burn. Jamal looks like he might physically collapse. He stares at me, completely stripped of his arrogance, his bullying tactics, and his corporate leverage. He is nothing but a desperate failed manager facing his own public execution. I look back at him, my expression perfectly calm, letting him drown in the silence of his own making. The suffocating silence in the boardroom is finally broken by the crisp, sharp sound of a heavy paper folder hitting the mahogany table. Mr. Sterling slides the thick manila envelope directly across the polished wood until it rests exactly in front of Miss Caldwell. I am a man who values efficiency and absolute transparency. Ms. Caldwell. Mr. Sterling says, his voice completely devoid of any warmth. Inside that folder is the formal, legally binding notice of immediate contract termination. My legal counsel has already reviewed your service level agreements. Your firm has failed to meet the baseline security protocols, failed to maintain the required data redundancies, and failed to employ competent leadership. You are in material breach of our contract. Ms. Caldwell does not touch the folder right away. She stares at it as if it might detonate. When she finally looks up, her eyes are completely devoid of the usual corporate diplomacy. She turns her gaze slowly toward Jamal. The temperature in the room seems to plummet by 10 degrees. Jamal, Ms. Caldwell says, her voice dropping into a dangerously quiet register. I want you to look me in the eye and tell me exactly why our $20 million flagship account is currently being extracted by a former employee. I want you to explain to this entire executive board why you bypassed our most senior, highly qualified data architect to promote a woman who has been here for 8 months. Jamal swallows hard, his throat clicking visibly. He attempts to stand up straighter, desperately trying to summon the charismatic, confident persona that got him his position in the first place. Ms. Caldwell, I made a strategic leadership decision based on departmental synergy. Kendra is a brilliant coder, but she lacks the collaborative energy and the soft skills required to manage a dynamic team. Ashley possesses exceptional interpersonal communication abilities. I was simply prioritizing a cohesive cultural fit. The vein in Ms. Caldwell's neck throbs visibly. You prioritized a cultural fit over a functional database, she asks, her voice rising with every single word. You handed the keys to our most sensitive digital infrastructure to a novice because she has good interpersonal skills. Soft skills do not compile quarterly financial reports, Jamal. Bubbly personalities do not throttle server memory leaks. You lost our biggest client because you wanted a cheerleader running a department of engineers. Ashley suddenly lets out a loud, wet sob. The sound echoes sharply in the tense boardroom. She covers her face with both hands, her shoulders shaking violently. It is the classic, entirely predictable defense mechanism she has used her entire life whenever she is held accountable for her own shortcomings. She is deploying her tears, desperately hoping the executives will feel sorry for her and shift the blame away from her fragile shoulders. I did not mean to do it, Ashley cries, lowering her hands to reveal a face completely streaked with ruined mascara. Jamal told me the system was fully automated. He said I just had to click the buttons on the dashboard and the computer would do the rest. I did not know the background files were missing. Kendra was supposed to be mentoring me. She was supposed to show me how everything worked, but she walked out and abandoned us. It is not my fault. I do not roll my eyes. I do not raise my voice to defend myself against her pathetic, tearful accusations. I simply lean forward slightly, resting my forearms on the heavy mahogany table. Mentoring implies a baseline level of foundational competence, Ashley. I say, my voice perfectly smooth and entirely detached. You cannot mentor someone on advanced database architecture when they routinely have to ask the IT department how to reset their own desktop password. And Jamal did not ask me to mentor you. He explicitly ordered me to sacrifice my personal weekends to do your job for you indefinitely, without the title, without the authority, and without the compensation. I simply declined the unpaid internship. Mr. Sterling does not even look at Ashley. He addresses Ms. Caldwell directly, completely ignoring the weeping woman sitting across from him. This is exactly the kind of profound structural incompetence I refuse to finance. Your director of operations promoted a woman with zero technical background because she smiled nicely in meetings while systematically burying the brilliant black woman who actually kept the lights on. He built a house of cards and expected Kendra to stand quietly in the shadows and hold it up for free. Ashley lets out another loud, dramatic sob, attempting to draw the attention back to her distress. Mr. Sterling, please, you have to understand. I was just trying my best to fix the screen when it froze. I was just trying to help. Mr. Sterling finally turns his head and looks at Ashley. His dark eyes are entirely devoid of sympathy. He looks at her with the cold, calculating precision of a man who deals exclusively in results. Save your tears, young lady, Mr. Sterling says, his voice slicing through her, crying like a scalpel. We are not on a playground, and crying does not recover deleted corporate data. Your best effort nearly cost my company millions of dollars in lost operational metrics. I strongly suggest you leave this boardroom, immediately walk back to your desk, and pack whatever personal items you brought into this building. You have absolutely no business operating in this industry. Ashley gasps, looking wildly at Jamal for protection. But Jamal is staring rigidly at the table, completely paralyzed by his own impending doom. He has absolutely no power left to save her. Mr. Sterling is entirely correct, Ms. Caldwell announces, standing up from her leather chair. Her voice leaves absolutely no room for negotiation. Security will escort you out of the building, Ashley. You are terminated effective immediately. Do not attempt to log into any company devices on your way out. Ashley pushes her chair back, her hands trembling uncontrollably. She looks around the boardroom, desperately searching for a single sympathetic face among the senior executives. She finds absolutely nothing but cold, furious glares. She lets out a final humiliated sob, turns on her heel, and practically runs out of the double doors, fleeing the consequences of her own unearned privilege. Ms. Caldwell turns her devastating attention back to Jamal. And you, Jamal, you have not just demonstrated a catastrophic lack of judgment. You have exposed this firm to monumental legal and financial liability. You deliberately lied to our most valuable client to cover up your own spectacular negligence. Ms. Caldwell, please, I can salvage the remaining accounts. Jamal begs, the last shreds of his dignity evaporating. I can rebuild the department. You will not be rebuilding anything, Ms. Caldwell states with absolute finality. You are suspended without pay, pending a full forensic legal review of your department's operations and hiring practices over the last 12 months. Hand over your security badge and your company phone right now. You will be escorted off the premises by the head of security. Jamal slowly reaches into his tailored suit jacket. His hands are physically shaking as he pulls out his corporate smartphone and unclips his security badge from his belt. He places them on the mahogany table. The plastic badge clicks softly against the wood. He looks at me one last time. There is no arrogance left in his eyes. There is no authority. There is only the hollow, devastating realization that he threw away his entire career because he underestimated the quiet woman who actually ran his world. He turns and walks out of the boardroom a completely broken man. I sit comfortably in my premium leather chair, sitting shoulder to shoulder with the chief executive officer of a multi-million-dollar enterprise. I watch the heavy glass doors close behind Jamal. The air in the boardroom feels incredibly light and clean. The toxic infrastructure has been completely demolished. Now it is time for me to dictate the exact terms of my extraction. I walk out of that corporate building for the absolute last time, stepping into the bright, warm Atlanta sunlight. I do not look back at the glass doors or the towering concrete structure that housed 5 years of my unappreciated labor. I get into my car, place my briefcase on the passenger seat, and drive home with a quiet, profound sense of victory settling deep into my bones. The rest of the day passes in a state of tranquil productivity. I finalize the data migration for Mr. Sterling, ensuring his executive portals are fully operational on my secure independent servers. By the time the sun begins to set, casting long golden shadows across my living room, my professional transition is flawlessly complete. I pour myself a cup of chamomile tea, sit on my velvet sofa, and open my phone settings. I navigate to my blocked contacts list and deliberately unblock my brother's number. I know the fallout from the boardroom execution is currently rippling through his household, and I want to hear the final crash. I want to close this chapter entirely on my own terms. I do not have to wait long. At exactly 8:45 in the evening, my phone screen lights up with Malik's name. I take a slow sip of my tea, set the ceramic mug down on the coffee table, and press answer. I do not even get the chance to say hello. Malik's voice explodes through the speaker, loud, frantic, and dripping with a venomous, misplaced blame. "You ruined my life, Kendra," he screams, his voice cracking with a mixture of rage and absolute panic. "Are you happy now? Are you satisfied?" Ashley just came home sobbing uncontrollably, carrying a cardboard box. She was escorted out of the building by security like a common criminal. Jamal was suspended without pay. The firm is threatening to sue them both for gross negligence. I listen to his frantic shouting, keeping my breathing perfectly steady. I do not interrupt him. I let him exhaust his frantic, aggressive energy. She is completely inconsolable. Malik continues, his breathing ragged. And now she is blaming me. She is screaming that I pushed her to take a job she was not ready for, just so we could afford the new cars and the house upgrades. Our marriage is falling apart right in front of my eyes, Kendra. We are going to lose the house. We cannot afford the mortgage on my salary alone. You knew exactly what was going to happen when you walked into that boardroom with her biggest client. You deliberately humiliated her. You destroyed my family over a stupid grudge. The sheer towering audacity of his accusations is almost breathtaking. He is a grown man, a corporate lawyer, actively trying to hold his younger sister responsible for his wife's catastrophic incompetence and his own financial greed. I take a deep, cleansing breath. I strip every single ounce of familial warmth from my voice, leaving behind nothing but cold, absolute truth. I did not ruin your marriage, Malik, I state firmly, my voice cutting through his hysterical rambling like a blade. Your marriage is falling apart because it is built on a foundation of profound delusion. You encouraged your wife to steal a promotion she did not earn. You happily watched her humiliate me at your own dinner table. You demanded that I sacrifice my weekends to do her job for free simply so you could maintain a luxury lifestyle you cannot actually afford. But you are my sister, Malik pleads, his anger suddenly fracturing into a pathetic, desperate whine. You are supposed to protect us. You are supposed to help family. I shake my head even though he cannot see me. Family does not exploit family, Malik. You did not want a sister. You wanted an invisible, unpaid servant to carry your wife's career on my back. You wanted me to stay in the dark fixing her catastrophic mistakes, while she collected the bonus checks and the applause. You both made your choices. You chose to value her bubbly personality over my actual brilliance. Now you get to live with the exact, unshielded consequences of that choice. Kendra, please, he begs, his voice dropping to a desperate whisper. We are going to lose everything. Just call Mr. Sterling. Tell him you will work with the firm again. Tell him Ashley can be a project manager. Just help us fix this. I lean back against the velvet cushions. The absolute finality of the moment washes over me. I am no longer his safety net. I am no longer the scapegoat. I am completely, irrevocably free. I will not set myself on fire just to keep your wife warm. Malik, I declare, delivering the final, unyielding boundary. Do not ever contact me again. I lower the phone and press the red end call button, cutting off his desperate protests. I open his contact profile and press block caller. I do the same for my parents, anticipating their inevitable attempts to mediate a situation that is no longer up for discussion. The digital severance is absolute. The toxic ties are permanently cut. 3 weeks later, the chaos of my former life feels like a distant, irrelevant memory. I am sitting behind a sleek, modern glass desk in my brand new corner office in downtown Atlanta. The floor-to-ceiling windows offer a breathtaking panoramic view of the city skyline. The space smells of expensive espresso and fresh leather. In the bright open concept workspace, just outside my heavy wooden door, my two newly hired junior developers are quietly and efficiently coding a new data pipeline. The transition for Mr. Sterling's enterprise was an absolute masterpiece, and the word of my independent consulting firm is spreading rapidly through the corporate ecosystem. I am no longer a background worker bee. I am the chief executive officer of my own data architecture firm. I dictate the terms. I set the prices. I own every single line of code my company produces. I review a flawless quarterly diagnostic report on my monitor, savoring the profound quiet peace of my own unbothered excellence. Suddenly, the sleek multi-line phone on my desk begins to ring. The caller identification display lights up, projecting a name I recognize instantly. It is the chief financial officer of another massive corporate enterprise. It is one of the former flagship accounts currently managed by Jamal's collapsing firm. The industry gossip network is incredibly efficient. The executives at that company know exactly why Mr. Sterling pulled his $20 million contract, and they know exactly who actually built the infrastructure they are currently terrified of losing. They do not want to be the next casualty of Jamal's incompetence. They want to jump ship, and they want to hire the architect. I look at the flashing light on the digital display. I do not rush to pick up the receiver. I lean back in my ergonomic leather chair, crossing my arms over my tailored suit. I let the phone ring once, allowing the sweet melodic sound of incoming highly lucrative business to echo through my beautiful new office. A genuine, deeply satisfied smile spreads across my face. I reach out, pick up the receiver, and get to work. The most powerful lesson from Kendra's journey is that your true value isn't defined by people who actively benefit from making you feel small. When a toxic environment, whether it is a workplace or your own family, demands your brilliance but refuses to give you respect, the strongest move isn't to fight for their validation. It is to pack up your talents and walk away. You never have to set yourself on fire to keep entitled people warm. True empowerment comes from recognizing your own worth, setting ironclad boundaries, and channeling your energy into building your own empire instead of silently propping up their crumbling house of cards. If you've ever had to walk away from a toxic environment to claim your own power, drop A in the comments and hit subscribe for more stories of sweet revenge and self-worth.